All right, the meeting will then be officially called to order. Please stand as Trustee Freeman leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one. All right, we'll begin tonight with the superintendent's report. Dr. Woods.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell, members of the board. A few items to report. As we get close to the last Friday in the month, that's what we call our base day for enrollment. As of last Friday, we had grown about 1,100 students over the same day a year ago, and we expect our enrollment to be right at 107,000 by Friday. A good number of that growth is not surprising, is in our pre-K programming, but there's also healthy growth in the other grades K through 5. So that's a nice report. Been studying quite a bit, and not just us, but statewide organizations. Now that we're in the second year of A through F ratings, really been studying the correlations between D and F ratings with the demographics of the campuses where those D and F ratings are showing up, not just 1 year now, but 2 years in a row. And I'll just make the kind of statewide comment that there is still a healthy correlation between D and F ratings on campuses and socioeconomic status of the students served by the campus. At least as concerning, if not more so, is that there's also an even greater correlation with the race and ethnicity of the students who attend the campus. I think and I've been saying this for a long time, and I know that some of you get sick of hearing it, we have a serious policy problem with how we are rating schools, how we're holding schools accountable. And I believe that what I just stated about those correlations can and should give us a venue for further policy action. We have got to find ways to hold schools accountable. No, I don't know all these school people in this room. Nobody believes that schools shouldn't be held accountable. But to do it in a way that really describes the full breadth of the school's work, because I think what we have is not serving us. And unfortunately, it's not serving that group of kids that needs to be served the very best. And that is a real shame. So, on a lighter note, recently was able to conduct an ed chat, a Twitter chat, and when I say conduct, I mean the technology services people did it, and I was just kind of there participating, but we looked at student engagement in that hour-long kind of online professional development, and I'm always amazed at the amount of people who participate, the energy of the folks that participate. And I want to thank John Moran, who's the technology services person, without whom we would have had no Twitter chat. So had it been left to me, but really engaging. I really appreciate folks that participated in that. A couple of items related to our foundation. Our annual giving campaign is well underway. That's typically the foundation's biggest fundraiser of the year, is the employee annual giving campaign, and that is underway. I'll also say thanks to the members of the board who were able to attend last week. The gala appears to be very successful. I haven't seen a final income report yet, but everything that I've seen appears to be very successful. Also fundraiser for the foundation. Recently met with our Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. We've just started meeting with the 2018 group after that bond was passed. And this time reviewed projects that Leroy and Henry and all their staff completed over the summer, looked at the projects that are up and coming this year, and also looked at legislation that's going to impact the way we do future bonds. Members of the board know that we've had 2 or 3 pieces of legislation passed this last time that will impact how future bonds get rolled out, including what has to be on separate positions, how things have to be financed from a maturity standpoint, and so forth. So we went through those things with that group as well. All right, we're going to transition now to video, and we're going to look at a new orchestra group at Jordan Middle School.
At Jordan Middle School, they're writing a new song for some students.
It warms my heart because it's making them happy, and that's all I care about, is that they're happy. And they're just getting to express themselves in a totally different way than they ever have before.
It's part of a new program at Jordan, introducing applied learning environment, or ALE students, to orchestra instruments.
I think music should be able to be accessed by everyone. I think it's one of the most important things a person can have in their life.
The program is the brainchild of Brianna Long, Jordan's ALE teacher, and Sarah Hayter, the school's orchestra teacher. Every day, students work with the violin and cello. They learn how to keep a beat, read sheet music, and recognize notes.
It starts on A.
It does start on A, you're absolutely right.
And already, they're making music.
1, 2, ready, play.
We did not think we would get this far so quickly. They have just learned to love this class, and they have just advanced so quickly, and it's been amazing. I'm so proud of them.
As for the students, the class has definitely hit the right note.
I like to poke the strings and look and then poke the strings again.
And there are plans for this group to show off their new skills and perform with the rest of the orchestra students during a holiday concert.
You just never know. You never know until you expose them to the arts, what some of their hidden talents might be. And yeah, so we've got a couple of kids that are already musicians and some that I think are excited about becoming musicians.
Which means these students will be making beautiful music for a long time. That's a look at what's going on around Northside. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
In public schools, we proudly educate all children. Dr. Harrell, that concludes superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. I'll agree with that. Any board members' reports? Ms. Reed?
Don't have that much to say, but the last board meeting I did mention that my husband had heart surgery, and I should let you know he's doing very well. So, and this week he finally got to start driving again. So my life is a little less complicated, but he's doing fine. And some of you may have seen the story about him in the newspaper, as he is the president of the Medical Foundation, and so it called him the power broker of the medical community out there. So he's doing great. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say, the NEF Gala was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that I think we've made quite a bit of money, especially on the live auction. It was wonderful. And we all were actually up in Dallas this past weekend going to the TASB convention, and I'm sure Karen will have some more to say about that. It's always fun for me to go back because I get to see all the people that I worked with for years on the TASB board as well. And we do always learn a lot. One of the things that I see a lot, or I don't see a lot of, is the other people here in San Antonio that should be there that are not, from some of the dysfunctional school districts. They don't evidently appear to get the training that they really need to be getting. Northside and Northeast and Judson, I guess, are the big three that go all the time. And it's well worthwhile to go to learn and to share. So because our superintendent was the superintendent of the year during this past year, he was also sort of highlighted in a number of events and did a fantastic job. So congratulations one more time. I know you're happy that it's ending, but we appreciate the fact that you're there. And I don't think they're going to, just erase your name. They're going to keep calling on you. Good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Reed. Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Dr. Harrow. I wanted to follow up regarding the TASB training. Well, there were a lot of sessions, and two of the significant sessions that were being presented were hosted by Northside. One was hosted by our facilities department, as well as Miss Chumley presented with San Miguel. Did a really wonderful informational training and represented Northside very well as our, grow our own program with our leadership academy, including Mr. Galindo. Shared a lot of insight. There was a lot of dialogue between Northside and some of the participants, and so it was a collaboration with UTSA as well. Again, also just going back, Dr. Woods, thank you for representing Northside so well. Having that dialogue, but being up there to represent all of our Northside community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Ms. Freeman.
Thank you. A couple of things. The NEF Gala, what I really enjoy is listening to our pillars talk about their stories. And though I understand there's a 2-hour block of time and we have a lot to get done in a 2-hour block of time, the stories that the kids have are just, those that have been selected as pillars are just really fascinating. I don't think we ever have enough time to hear all they have to say, but it was just phenomenal, and it was a great event. As you've heard, we've had TASB convention. It's our state annual convention of the Texas Association of School Administrators and the Texas Association of School Boards. And I got to tell you, every time I network or have an opportunity to talk with trustees from across the state of Texas, I come back with, I just feel blessed, and I'm proud to be a part of Northside and what we do here in Northside. We have, I appreciate the culture of our school district, but importantly, what we do, we interface with each other quite a lot, and I appreciate the culture of this board and our board superintendent relationships. And along those lines, Dr. Woods, as TASA president-elect this year, as well as the superintendent of the year for this past year, he was asked to be part of a podcast, and some of us were listening to the...
Which I had never done, obviously.
It was wonderful, and it actually will be posted on the TASB website soon, not only on the and anybody can access it.
And we're going to make sure everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yes. It was one...
These people are sick of listening to me talk as it is.
So Google it, TASB Talks, but great job, though, Dr. Woods, and the questions that that the moderator asked at the very beginning, had to do with board superintendent relationships, and that's something I'm real proud of, that we have as part of our board, and great job, Dr. Woods. He was also part of a conversation with this year's superintendent of the year, and it was interesting to hear a little bit more personally about your what drives you, what motivates you, the why of why you were here. So I appreciate your comments, and great job, Dr. Woods. And I think that's all I have to say, Dr. Hart.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Mr. Lopez.
Oh, am I? Okay. I thought it was her. Okay. No, thank you. First of all, just a thank you very much to James Machoka, your fine arts department, and your fine arts students for the great job that they did at the NEF Gala. And Cassandra, I don't know if she's here or not, but great job as well for organizing that. So tremendous event, and I really appreciate you guys out there doing what you guys did. So thank you for that. Wanted to talk a little bit about one of the sessions, since we were talking about our convention that we go and we get some extra credit hours or some credit hours for our, as being a board member. One of the things that I took part of, and it was really interesting, one of the sessions, it had to do with, uh, you know, what public accountability is and community involvement when it comes to campuses and things like that. And it was really interesting to see a lot of the campuses around the state are really involving the community and as far as their local community, right? Let's say an elementary campus and their elementary community, they're really doing a good job in trying to incorporate them into the decisions that they do and the and the things that they have going on in the campus. And as I was looking and listening to what these school districts are doing, I was like, man, we're so ahead of the game. I mean, we've been doing that for as long as I've been on the board and even longer. But it was like, wow, so they're just not, but it's good stuff, right? When you see that they're doing things and they're really starting to catch on. So it was really good for me to see that. And it just kind of homed in on a lot of the stuff that we're doing out here as Northside. And we're really leading this kind of stuff. So just wanted to mention that and had a great time at TASA TASB, learned a lot. And I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chubley.
Oh, thank you. So what I learned at TASA TASB is that we are so very fortunate, and I'm sorry that we are all bragging on you, Brian, but had you not done as good a job representing us, then we wouldn't be saying all of these fine things about you.
That makes me think.
I really was impressed with that. So when you're sitting in these sessions, and particularly if you've been on the board for a long time and are in such a large progressive school district as Northside, it's challenging sometimes to find presentations that really fit and that you can really take things from. I very much enjoyed your podcast, and I took things from that. I thought you did a really good job, and you looked very much at ease for not having done that. And I liked the discussion you had with the 2019 Superintendent of the Year as well. But the other thing, even though you were outstanding in all of those things, I will tell you the other part of this is, so you're sitting in these sessions, and it's trustees and it's superintendents. And then you hear others, and then just in casual conversations, you'll meet other superintendents. And I start listening to the other superintendents, and it makes me so very thankful that we have Dr. Woods as our superintendent, because he is just a cross-section of knowledge. So you may talk to one superintendent, and he's really great on curriculum instruction, but you talk to him about finance, and you're wondering how their school will make it through the year. And then, you talk to others, and they're like, they were CFOs of every, major, Fortune 500 company that went into public ed, but they absolutely have not a clue about curriculum and instruction. So I just came out of it really recognizing how very fortunate we are that you are so knowledgeable in all aspects of it. And so I will quit bragging on you now for the next few months. But I just wanted to tell you, I talked to a couple of soups, and I just thought, oh my gosh, we would be in trouble. And we are so fortunate to have you. And then, of course, next year when you're TASA president, and we get to brag on you again. So just know it's coming. I wanted to thank... I wanted to ask, do we have any students? Do we have any students here?
Marvin's class is here.
Oh, okay. And I apologize if y'all were already asked. So Northwest Vista,
Yeah.
and you are here for?
Go.
Okay. Well, we always appreciate that you bring your students and that you come, and you actually have a really pretty good agenda tonight for y'all to learn from. So just, you're welcome, and we're glad to have you. Any of you going to be teachers? I saw a real quick shake of the head. Absolutely not. Well, if you change your mind over the course of your college career, this is the promised land, and, come back and visit us if y'all change your mind about wanting to be an educator. I wanted to thank Stan and all of his staff. So we had football games, that were, really exciting games. O'Connor 9, John Jay 6, and in the fourth quarter, they were, it was called for lightning and weather. So then they had to come back and play at 4 o'clock the next day, while we were also having 7 o'clock or 7:30 games as well. So I really want to thank Stan and his staff for taking care of all of the logistics of that. And what I have heard is that it went pretty smoothly, and we got all of our games played. So I know that took a lot of effort, and I just wanted to thank him for that. Just a real quick thank you to the staff and volunteers who supported the NEF Gala. I know that we had a lot of our employees that volunteered their time for that night to make it successful, and I really appreciated that they were there and did that. Bobby, I wanted to tell you, you have so many hats. Tonight's my night to brag about all these people. That Black Caucus event that you were in charge of at the convention,
Took all my money.
I know what I'm talking about. Don't say what it was. Moving on.
that was so much fun, and it was it was organized so well, and everyone was smiling that was there. So thank you, and thank you for always making sure that we're invited and welcome to that as well. But I just wanted to tell you, I thought you did a really good job. It was really a great and very enjoyable event, and I hope you raised some good money too as well. So those of us that made the very last presenter at TASA TASB, so that was that young man who took 2 weeks off and then took 2 months off to go ahead and work on his bucket list. And so I was really thinking, how could this, I'm thinking he's mid-20s, maybe early 30s. But when he did this, he was like, 20, 18, 19, 20. So I really went into this thinking, I'm leaving early because I wanted to head back to San Antonio. And what can this young, 20-something have to say that would really radiate with, this 60-something person? And so I was greatly surprised. He is absolutely a phenomenal speaker, should have been in one of the other sessions, truly had a great impact on me with what he had to say. And I've talked to Dr. Woods about it. I'm really hoping that we can figure out a way to get him to come and be a speaker to our students and our staff.
You need to mention his name.
Ben Nemtin. And he is one of the executive producers of Buried Life on MTV. So you can imagine MTV and me. So that was why I didn't think I would get a whole lot out of it, but I really did. And so he was phenomenal. So I really hope that we're able to do that, because he really did have, for a young person, he had some great things to say. And he also has a story about his depression or his anxiety and how it stopped him. I mean, he was this young man that was just, winning all sorts of accolades. He was on the Canadian national rugby team and was going to, the World Cup, and had gotten into a full ride scholarship, and he suddenly started having anxiety and was not able to do any of those things at all. Lived in his parents' basement, and they were very worried about him. And his story is also about mental health issues and how he overcame that and what he did. And I just think it really fits with what we're working and wanting to do. And a real quick thank you to Leroy and to Jerry Lammers for letting me be part of the presentation. As always, you guys did an outstanding job, and I appreciated that opportunity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chumbley. Real quick, I wanted to thank Ms. Freeman for subbing for me last month. I really, really appreciate that. And to the board, the team of 8 for, Bobby.
No, go ahead.
No, you go, sir, please.
No, you started.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't see you, okay.
My
For the beautiful flowers and for supporting me and my family, or my family and me during when my father passed. And I'm telling you, the flowers were incredible. A couple of you gave food. Certainly the calls and presence, your presence being there made a lot of difference. And just kind of a shout out to him. He was the first PTA president at Hobby Middle School and had just months earlier arrived back from Vietnam and told Hobby Middle School teachers at their 25th celebration that that saved his life. He felt that coming back and working with kids and adults, or adults for kids, really did add value back to his attitude, his sense of humor he found again. But so a shout out to Northside, but also to Hobby for bringing such joy to not just my dad, but our family. So, but thank you, board, and thank you, Karen. I did want to celebrate Dr. Veronica Artiega, a principal at Passmore, and her staff. I went to a Communities and Schools Welcome Back event, and she spoke and told this a heartfelt story about how it feels to be a kiddo that kind of masks not having school supplies, or how they hide not being ready for school and having new crayons. And it just, everyone was in tears, but it also at the same time kind of glorified and cemented the work that CIS does with our district and our schools. And she certainly could have done a TED Talk the way that she was telling the story, and it really was about her, so, and her kids, but it was marvelous. So hats off to Dr. Artiega. Okay, I can't read my own handwriting. And then I didn't get to thank Stan Lang and his staff and the counselors and the volunteers and the coaches that facilitated the Servant Leadership Summit this summer. It was incredible, and it was centered on a very poignant subject and heartfelt subject at the same time on mental health, and the kids blew us away at the tables with their honesty, but also ways to help them with their friends. And several of them at that time, the good thing counselors were there, were able to have some real good, meaningful conversations. So that was wonderful. But I did want to end with Stan, Dr. Woods highlighted a little vignette, I guess, about Stan Lang in Woods Weekly. And I love it because we have so many educators here, but also those who support educators. And he put in there that why I believe, so this is Stan talking, why I believe education is missionary work. We have the opportunity to teach life lessons in so many teachable moments in a learning environment, whether it is in a classroom or on a field. How to live with hope, especially during difficult and challenging times. Thank you. How we act in the face of adversity, and this is from Dr. Woods, says so much about us. The story inspires me and inspired me, and I'm sure you in this room, to be a better educator and parent. And so anyway, hats off to his group. And then last but not least, my favorite part of NEF was the John Jay kids. They were phenomenal. They were excited. And I never get to sit like front row, so there's little perks with being president. But sitting there and seeing their faces, they were so excited, and we were clapping, and they just, you saw them slowly try to get off the stage. They were like, I performed at the Tobin, and they can actually say that and put it on their resume, but they did perform, and it was phenomenal, and our table just was talking about how good they did. So anyway, thank you, and now, Mr. Blunt.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be quick. Just a couple of items. Back on the convention again, one of the other things that we sort of realize is when you're there, superintendents are very close, but most people realize that trustees are really close. It really is a family environment, without a doubt. And as such, we have opportunities to have really family-type conversations. I'll just say it that way. So we want to ask what each other's doing and other things. That is a perfect environment to do that. So that is one of the other good benefits, in addition to sessions, is to really see what's going on with each other and sort of question each other in some regards. So really beneficial. I want to give the board and everybody else, I guess, an update on some Go Public type things real quick. So our advocacy campaign with Go Public, the partnership we have established, But the Friends of Texas Public Schools is really blossoming across the board in terms of collaborating together on some similar common things we have, some financial things and some other things too. So that is working out really well. We actually have, I don't know if everybody knows this, we've got 2 new members. We have 18 total now, or 19? 18 total now. So Bernie and Lavernia have joined all of our San Antonio area. They're now San Antonio area also, as part of the Go Public campaign also. And there'll be a big training / get everybody together session that's being scheduled in October. So I hope everybody can make that. It'll be all, board, superintendent, as well as our
Communications
Monica.
folks.
Communication. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Call them communication. Monica, it's all the same. That's the best. And the last thing I have, real quick, is we talk about how close we are, and I'm going to do a shout out to Joseph, if that's allowed, because I didn't get a chance to go home, so I don't have a coat, and I told Joseph that. So notice that he didn't put his coat on either, so I didn't feel bad. So thank you, Joseph. That's all I have.
I think Gerald and I would happily.
No, pressure's on.
I'm willing to take mine off. How about you?
I only speak for this half of the room.
We can give you a minute.
As soon as we finish recognitions.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Thank you so much. We're going to move to recognitions, and we have one of our favorite people here to help us, Miss Sherry Doss, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Galindo.
Let's go down, stand down here.
Okay, we'll go down first.
Carol, just real quick, Linda, if you would, I forgot one thing on my notes. Erica Forrester was so helpful to us at NEF in getting my son checked out of the auction, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Erica, because she was great, and I really appreciated her assistance.
Thank you.
Thanks. What's your son? I'm sorry? Oh my gosh, all sorts of stuff he bought. He bought a micro refrigerator, and he bought
Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, trustees, my name is Ray Galindo. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Administration. And tonight we are recognizing 6 school PTAs that have been named 2019-2021 Schools of Excellence. Evers, Forrester, Nichols, and Scarborough Elementary Schools, as well as Briscoe Middle School and Clark High School, are among 326 schools from across the nation to receive the special designation. And they are 6 of the 7 PTAs in Bexar County to receive this top honor. The awards are given to PTAs for their achievements in building strong family school partnerships as part of their national PTA's ongoing efforts to increase family engagement in education. This is the 6th year in a row that Northside PTAs have received this designation. Research shows that when families and schools work together, student achievement increases, schools improve, and communities grow stronger. To be recognized as the National PTA School of Excellence, PTAs must evaluate their current family engagement strategies and submit a goal for school improvement that families, teachers, and administrators have set together. Schools must then improve upon their family engagement strategies throughout the year while focusing on this goal. The National PTA School of Excellence designation is awarded with demonstrated improvement in the family-school partnership and significant progress toward this goal. Before I introduce our principals, however, and PTA representatives, I'd like to reintroduce a special guest. With us, we have, and we're honored to have the Texas PTA President, Ms. Sherry Doss, and I'd like for Ms. Doss to come up and make some remarks. Ms. Doss.
Thank you, Mr. Galindo. Well, I am truly honored to be here to be able to participate in this recognition. And one of my favorite things to do as president is going all over the state and recognizing everyone for the great work that they do. But tonight is extra special because we're celebrating the partnership between schools and families through Northside ISD's campuses, as well as the families here and with their support through PTA. And then we all know that in order for our children to really reach their potential, it's going to take that very strong bond between the school and and the family. So I commend Northside for continuing to engage in this year after year after year. And I'm super proud because when I go to the national convention, I just came from a retreat that we have for our new governance. And I'm always so proud to remind everybody that Texas has the most national School of Excellence participants in the entire nation. So thank you, Northside, for making sure that number is nice and big and allowing me to brag quite a bit. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our 2019-2021 Schools of Excellence. I'm going to ask these folks to come up, if you will, and accept the certificate from Dr. Woods and shake hands with all our trustees and, of course, Ms. Dawes. So we'll begin with Evers Elementary, and with us from Evers, we have Talia Hernandez, principal, along with Catherine Lasso, current PTA president, and Marisa Martinez, immediate past PTA president. From Forrester Elementary, we have Principal Kelly Mantle, along with Leonora Morales, current PTA president, and Ileana Perez, vice principal. Next, we have Nichols Elementary. And from Nichols Elementary, we have Mr. Jeff Davenport, principal, along with Lorraine Moreno, current PTA president, and Kathy Flores, immediate past PTA president. From Scarborough Elementary, we have Principal Chris Cotton with Ashley Pipegrass, current PTA president, and Monica Medina, immediate past PTA president. Moving on to our secondary schools. From Briscoe Middle School, we have Ms. Christina Rather, principal, and Karen Cavalin, current PTA president, and Major Trejo, immediate past PTA president. And finally, representing our high school, Clark High School principal, Dr. Jerry Woods, along with Donna Quiroga, current PTA president, and Michelle Montemayor, immediate past PTA president. Finally, we'd like to recognize any family or staff or fellow PTA members that are here in support of the honorees. If you will, please stand up so we can recognize you. Supportive husband, thank you for being here. At this time, I will turn the next recognitions to Dr. Woods. Dr. Woods.
Congratulations to all of you on such outstanding work with our PTAs, and to Sherry, it has been a blessing to have you as a state PTA president and knowing this area of our state so well. So thank you for your work as well. So for the past 28 years, since 1991, the Northside Board of Trustees have annually signed a code of ethics, and I sign it on behalf of the staff, affirming our commitment to adhere to educational and ethical standards. And as you see, there's a blank on the wall where we will put said code of ethics. And I think it's important that we keep that in our boardroom, as this is the place where we conduct our business. So at this time, we're going to ask each board member to come forward. Monica, there she is, and sign the code of ethics, and I will do so as well. You want to just prop it up?
Mr. Russell. I'll get that.
Oh, you're taking pictures now? Where's the music? Do I have to do everything?
Denise? What's she name? Oh.
September 24. It's hard to write like that.
Big time.
That's pretty straight. Good picture.
Carol, mention that.
Folks the opportunity to exit if they did
PTA folks, you are welcome to go watch the premiere of We Are Us or This Is Us or something. You can still make it. And real quick, a nice shout out to Monica Falkenberry, who did a great job introducing the key communicator, who was Mr. Butts, Mr. Charles Butt. So that was an honor and a privilege, but you did such a great job. So anyway, thank you very much. That was another honor that Northside was privy to. All right, we, PTA? Okay,
Could I say something about
sure, go ahead.
Just wanted to mention about the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics is something that we started here at Northside way back when in 1991. And Jesse Jones was on our board at that time, and he was very instrumental in pushing us forward to have a Code of Ethics. So we have had one for a long time, and we really haven't adjusted it too much, just a little bit. And now they are required. But we had one before any was required, and I think ours is probably much more comprehensive than anybody else's. And we look at it and we read it every year and make sure that we live by this Code of Ethics. So just to let you know, it's not just a piece of paper that's up on the wall. We really do live by it. Thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Ms. Reed. Good night, good night. Thank you. All right, we'll move along to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Mr. Blunt? Was that left over?
Yeah, it's left over.
Okay. Ms. Reed, that was left over. Ms. Chubley?
I've got a question on item, it's the last requisition under C, awarding of bids. It's for the Electronic Message Center for Dub Ferris. What is that?
That's the marquee that faces 1604,
Is it
electronic one.
broken?
It is completely.
Oh my gosh, how old is that? That's 10 years?
12?
12?
At least.
What's wrong with it?
It's just completely not functional.
Really? Did we go back to the manufacturer?
I think it had 5-year warranty.
Wow. That was really made to not last very long.
Yep.
On it.
It made it 10 or 12 years.
Okay, all right. I was thinking if that wasn't what it was, then, we really need a Jumbotron.
Nope, that's what it is.
Throw that out there just for us. Yeah, a good opportunity for us to think about that.
Moving along, here we go.
Okay, one
Any
other
other?
thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I've got Leroy, at building committee, we talked about Marshall and the eyebrows on the building, but that's not anywhere in this agenda. So is that coming back to us?
It's actually in the anteroom there where we've already put the sketches that reflects the eyebrows around the perimeter of the library that connects to the rest of the architecture in there.
Okay, and then you were going to get a cost, and then does that come back to the next building committee?
I think, given the conversation earlier this evening, it's going to have to.
Okay. All right, so it's coming back? Okay, all right. That was it. Thanks,
Thank
Carol.
you, thanks. Any other questions regarding the consent items? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor of approving the consent items as printed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along. Thank you, the ayes had it.
Motion carries.
We are now at citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens?
I don't think
Mr. Medina, no? Okay,
No, ma'am.
all right. Thank you. Curriculum and instruction, the 2020-2021 school calendar. Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, and the board. 3 calendar options were vetted through a variety of committees, in addition to getting some survey information from campus principals and teachers. Those particular options were discussed, I think, 3 times at academics. And so tonight, we're bringing forward the recommendation, which was option 2 out of all 3 options. Basically, as you see in your materials, this option is very typical to what we have had in years past. It begins about the same time that the typical year begins, and it has a professional learning day in October and also one in February. The difference of this calendar from previous calendars is it has the first semester for secondary students end at winter break. In calendars past, second semester ended mid-January. So this was overwhelmingly the desire of both practitioners and community folks who served on our committees. So we are here tonight asking for approval for this proposal.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Is there any discussion? Ms. Freeman.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. And as Janice said, it's been discussed in academics. Carol, I know you had shared a couple, and we just discussed it again in a meeting right before this evening. And as Janice said, it appears to be something that well, certainly the NEIC has approved it, but we talked about the calendar, the first semester ending before the first of the year, and how beneficial that would be, especially in lieu of all the testing that goes on in the spring. So, and not a whole lot of discussion at committee about it. I know Dr. Woods has, Anthony Jarrett had provided us a listing of the number of testing days that we do have after the first of the year, and it's quite substantial. So with that, Dr. Hall, I would move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar. All those in favor, say aye.
Wait, Carol?
Oh,
Yeah, ask for
oh,
discussion.
no, there's no Reed. There's a Medina, but he said no.
No, it was earlier.
Okay.
Ms. Chumley just pushed.
Ms. Chumley? Sorry.
Okay. I recognize that we have board committees and appreciate that, but something like this, I'm going forward, and I would still like to see what the other option is. If more than one option is being presented to NEIC and any other advisory committees and to academics, then that needs to be presented to the full board, please, if possible. I wasn't at academics, and I don't know what the other calendar looked like. And so just going forward, if we could keep that in mind to bring the other options to the full board in the future. What did the other option look like?
It was more of the same in that the semester would have ended in mid-January instead of in December, which is what our calendar has done in the past. This calendar is identical to the ones that we've had in the past, with that exception, the semester ending date.
And I remember that we've had that discussion many times about the value of ending, and then, Brian, we've had the other side too, about not trying to force that first semester to end prior to Christmas break either.
Yeah, we've
And
had that debate for, as you know, for years.
For years.
What's changed is two main things. One is there was a time where at our high schools we offered as many as 30 different one-semester courses. Over time, because of changes at the state, mostly changes in TEKS and so forth, that number has dwindled to like a half a dozen. There's just not very many left anymore of those one-semester courses. But we knew that the one-semester course teachers would be the ones most impacted by this change. So we went out and surveyed those folks, and a pretty heavy majority voted along these lines, because we knew that would be the group that would be impacted. Because if I teach English, when we end the semester is not a big impact on me. If I teach one of those one-semester courses, then there is a bigger impact. So we surveyed those folks to see if we were off base, and those folks agreed in the order of like 80%. I mean, a healthy number.
Did we get a good number that participated in the survey, Brian?
I can't quote it off the top of my head, but I remember
I'd like to
asking
know that.
Yeah, it was actually close to 90%, but yes, we have all of that data that I can
Okay,
get
so
you.
90% of those teachers teaching the
One-semester teachers.
one-semester teachers, and then 80%.
Actually, we combined the data all together. It was close to a 90% positive of wanting the first semester to end at winter break. So that was a combination of classroom teachers, both semester teachers, year-long teachers, and administrators.
I appreciate that. However, that's those teachers that aren't teaching a one-semester class, as you just said, it doesn't have the same impact. So if you've combined it all to be at 90%, then we really don't know what percent of the teachers that were teaching just a one-semester class. So I'd be interested in knowing what that percentage is in relation to those, because, and Janice, I appreciate you pulling it together, but the thing is that they're not impacted as, the teachers that have the full year in the class aren't impacted the same as those that don't.
Yeah, I think we have data on that, and again, a healthy percentage of those one semester teachers agreed with this move. We're supportive of this move.
And was that when we had spring break last year?
It is. It's the same week.
It's the same week. It just seems early. It
We-
just seemed, is there any particular reason, Brian, why we have it? Because, so we have spring break that week, and then we have Battle of Flowers. I don't know where Battle of Flowers and.
Late April.
And Good Friday. Okay.
April.
The Good Friday is the 2nd of April.
And then Battle of
Flowers
Flowers
is
is the
the
23rd?
23rd.
Okay, then that helps, because I know there was a period one time when and I don't know if Easter was
together.
early and it pushed stuff forward.
Yeah, we
but-
have that sometimes.
But we had spring break, and then it was like
Yeah.
1 week, and we had a
This actually
Friday
keeps
and-
the separation of the breaks a little further apart.
And Ms. Chumley, too, there's a handout, and I don't know if you got it, but it shows all the testing that occurs in the spring, and which means a lack of instructional time. And so that was the other rationale for ending before Christmas, is look at all the times testing, unfortunately, the bulk of it occurs in the second semester. And so that was the other rationale, so.
Well, I know that we'd always tried to, in the past, kind of balance those days between the semesters on it.
And I think that was one of the things
And
we discussed.
absolutely, when things were
72
evenly
instruction
balanced,
days.
but now it's so heavy in the spring. And actually, the idea to even look in this option came from teachers through our NCN meeting. So it came up a couple times, and they requested that we looked into the idea of ending the first semester at winter break.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when you look at what we do now with SAT, where we test our kids during the school day, when you look at the number of Northside kids who are taking advanced placement testing, frequently more than one, the testing impact on kids in the spring is pretty, in addition to, of course, the state required tests. Testing is pretty significant.
No, it makes sense. I just would have felt more comfortable having seen the other options that everyone else had seen on it.
It's really, other than that, that was the big discussion, is the semester issue. When do you end it?
Okay. All
Makes
right,
sense.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where are we with the vote? Okay, has it already been approved?
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
Hasn't been voted on, though.
No, but it's been
Ms.
moved and
Freeman?
seconded.
No,
Hang
that
on.
was prior.
Okay, I'm still trying to work these buttons out. Okay, Ms. Chumley, you just spoke. Ms. Freeman, it came back on again. And then Chumley, then, okay.
At least twice.
Okay, Ms. Reed, and then go for it.
And I really don't have to have much to say anymore because you've answered a lot of the questions that I was going to respond to.
Good.
I have always been opposed to ending the semester there when there's not equal amount of days, but the information that we received about why we're doing it makes very good sense. And so I was going to say I now can certainly support this, so.
Okay, thank you. Let me just double check there's no more lights. Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I think it already has been.
Okay, who gave the second? I missed
would
that.
be me.
That was, okay. All right. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the 2020-2021 school calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, not hearing any nays, we will move forward. The ayes have it, and we'll go to the campus and targeted improvement plan performance objectives with Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harrell. As we just discussed in academics, TEA has issued multiple
Brian, no
communications
offense, but-
providing districts guidance as to the requirements for creating targeted improvement plans. Interestingly, since the guidance was sent out in August, it has been changed 7 times. So it's been quite a feat keeping up with it. So the bad news is that there's been a lot of change. The great news is the process that we had put in place last spring has assured that we are completely in compliance. So what we're bringing forward to you are what we call performance objectives, which they are individual campuses' goals that campuses have set based on a comprehensive needs assessment. You'll see that the goals range in focuses on areas such as reading, writing, mathematics. You'll see quite a few that talk about closing the gaps between special ed learners and non-special ed learners, or English language learners and non-English language learners. You'll see others that talk about attendance, family engagement, and other aspects of school that we know create a positive culture. So in Northside, we have no overall campuses that received an F grade. Therefore, we don't have to submit any of these plans to the state. Many school districts do, we do not. So we're simply bringing forward to you the performance objectives of all of our campuses for your review, and we request their approval. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Janice, on these, so you have this now, and then when are they reviewed to see if they met it?
Yes, so we have an internal process in the district, so where campuses set their performance objectives and they have those uploaded in September. And that is after they have their SAT team, their school advisory team, sign off on them and agree. Then in November is the first progress check. And so that's when campuses go back and take a look at their goals and their strategies, and they enter in progress monitoring data that shows, what they've done, what data are they looking at to see if they're reaching their goal. They then do a second progress monitoring in February. Again, same process. They go back and look at their strategies, enter in new data.
That's in February?
November, February, and then they do their end of year. That's once they've received their end of year data from STAR and other statewide data, and they finalize that in June. So they actually have two mid-year progress checks after they set it, and then they have their end-of-year data that they provide.
And then what happens if they don't make one of their goals?
Well, there are a host of things that happen along the way. We have campuses each year that we identify as STAT, and those are campuses that are indicating on a whole host of measures that there's a lot of growth that they need there. So on those particular campuses, we provide wraparound support, and we actually work with those campuses close throughout the year. Campuses that are performing well, we, along with them, take a look at the data, did they exceed their certain goal that they set for themselves? Did they fall short? And depending upon the unique circumstances of the campus, there are many things that can be done. We look at how are we then going to set goals for the next year. We make decisions about perhaps some professional learning or instructional resources that might be needed at a campus. Campus principals do a host of things. They move teachers around. They look and see, maybe we've got this third grade team that we need to make some changes about who participates on that team. So there are both formal processes that we look at, as a district team, and then the campuses then dig into their data, and it informs what they do the following year.
Okay. Dr. Woods, so when we have, and I'm thinking like board superintendent goals, but when we have initiatives that we've talked about and that you're supportive of, such as the family-friendly schools, the welcomeness piece of it, the following up on, when families leave us, those pieces of it, are the social emotional wellness, because when you look through this, Some campuses have, so as an example, promote campus-wide health and fitness opportunities, identify and implement school-wide strategies for social-emotional learning to be utilized by 100% of staff. And so when you go through this, here's another one, to focus on social-emotional learning through various methods such as yoga and mindfulness strategies. Some have that and some don't. And I understand that we want the SATs and the administration of the school to drive what they need to focus on. But when we have a campus-wide initiative that we are talking about supporting and is also in the board superintendent goals, how does that fit in to the campus, to this?
Yeah, I think it depends on, it probably depends on how far along that initiative is. Most of what you see in these goals are academic in nature, right? These goals are generated by CAMPUS's comprehensive need assessment. And so many of these goals, the vast majority of these goals are academic in nature. I think there is a point where we'll say around, for instance, social and emotional strategies for kids, everybody will have X goals around that. I don't know that we're quite far enough along in that particular initiative to say that we're ready to do that, to say every campus is going to have something on this. What I think you see is campuses kind of early adopters, right? They're saying, we recognize the importance of this, we know that we need to add it in as a part of what we're doing. So I think the answer is that I kind of think it depends on how far along you are on things like that.
I guess, Brian, what concerns me is, so we have one that says, hang on just a second. During the 2019-2020 school year, teachers will implement social emotions one time per month during class meetings based on students' needs and interests to link student motivation to their personal success. And so if what we are talking about in the studies that you read about social emotional health, wellness, that impacts student achievement. And so if you have the schools that are focused most on, that have the greatest academic needs, yet when I look at some of those and the ones that are close to our SAT schools, I don't see anything having to do with that social emotional wellness. And I'm just wondering if we truly believe that that's going to impact academic success, because if I look at this and I say, okay, well, say I have the school that that is right on that borderline, and we do think the social emotional makes a difference for the academic achievement, but then I have a school that is a high flyer that has now identified that within their goals, they're going to have one time per month, they're going to be talking about this and implementing programs with their kids. I just think that we're not in balance, and so I'm not supportive of what they have. I'm just wondering if there is a change in mindset when we have a district goal that we all have recognized is necessary, if we need to change how we look at piece of it, because when I look at it, those schools that are struggling, that this may be helpful with, aren't implementing anything on it, and then we'll have the ones that are, and then next year we push, like you said, where you felt that we are further enough rolled out in it to require it of everyone, we're not going to be balanced across the district. So I'm just wondering if that's something we should think about.
Yeah, I think it's worthy of a conversation. I think you guys going. One is folks are working on goals that aren't necessarily articulated. That's true of us, right? Our board superintendent goals don't cover all of the work that we're doing. They don't cover 1% of the work that we're doing, right? So there's a lot of work that's going on that's not necessarily coming out in 2 or 3 goals. The other thing, though, that I think is important is folks know they're going to be held accountable to these goals, right? And so we don't encourage them to have 5 or 8 or 12 goals. We want them to have a reasonable number of goals
That's attainable.
and that are significant academic lifts, right? So if I'm struggling with reading on my campus, that's a big lift, right? That's a huge lift to get my staff better prepared to do that. And so I'm going to put that as a top priority because I know it impacts me and my staff in my school because of accountability and all those kinds of things, right? So I don't think that those are doing anything around that. It's just they're picking a reasonable number of goals in order to tackle in the coming year.
So would you think, because quite a few of them actually have goals about behavior? A lot of them have goals in relation to placement in ISS and some of the other punitive measures in relation to student behavior. Would you speculate that the schools are doing some of the social, emotional types of activities within that
goal? And so
right. Maybe they're doing it there, but it's just not articulated in this, but that's part of what they're going to do in trying to keep kids from being in trouble?
Yeah, and because the issue, of course, in that example is that kids are being removed from regular instruction, right? And so strategies that keep that removal from happening impact achievement of the kiddos, right? And a lot of the strategies that folks use to do that fit well into that category of kind of social and emotional supports.
Okay. I just think maybe next year we should look at that. Thank you. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. And I just accidentally closed out. Okay. Any more discussion on the PTIP campus performance objectives or any questions? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the campus performance objectives for 2019-2020?
So moved.
Sir. All right. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, the ayes have it. We'll move on now to facilities and operations. Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
You're welcome.
The first item we have for you, we have actually 4 items tonight, is recommended approval of the Ensign Jones new magnet school. The 2014 bond program surplus proceeds provided for the design and construction of our first school magnet at Ensign Jones Middle School. In order to plan accordingly, we are proposing the presentation for a conceptual plan that'll give everybody the opportunity to be able to understand what's going on at Ensign Jones. Along the way, we will present the idea of how that works into a master plan for looking in the future of Ensign Jones. During the review of the presentation, there were various goals that were established, which you'll see from the architect, he'll present them to you. So today we have from Pfluger Architects, Carl Hornbuckle and Andrew Pettis, that is going to give us a presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. I was actually not able to join the subcommittee to present. My colleague Andrew Pettis did, and so with your permission, I wanted to give him the opportunity to this really cool project with you all tonight.
Thank you.
You did a good job, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, and trustees, I'm very pleased to be here to present the Anson Jones Magnet program conceptual design and master plan. As Mr. San Miguel had mentioned, and Carr, we did have the opportunity to take a look at Jones Middle School. And so I'd like to show you the master plan that we put together tonight, and then feed into the magnet program and give you an idea of what we're thinking. So with that said, we had the opportunity to do an assessment of Jones Middle School, and you'll see here on this slide that we've highlighted the existing campus and the facilities that make up Jones Middle School today. So the main building was constructed in 1972. There has been some additional work done on the campus over the years as well, but the main building does remain intact at its current location. You'll see that that's followed by the 1975 CTE edition, and then the 2001 auxiliary gym, 2006 library, and then most recently your 2011 science edition. In looking at this campus, and as we present this master plan to you, we did establish, along with the facilities department, for what we're going to call campus goals. The primary goal and the main reason we're here with you this evening is to discuss, of course, the middle school magnet program. It's also been acknowledged that there is planning in place for a community clinic to serve some of the constituents of Northside ISD, which will potentially be located at the Jones campus. And then in looking at our sub-goals in the overall master plan, we look at enhancement of the campus and security with some reorganization of facilities and taking a look at the aesthetic values. And then lastly, the acquisition of a city-owned building adjacent to the property. So one thing I do want to point out before we move on is you'll see a black property line outlining the campus. There is another property line that's indicative of that City of San Antonio owned building. So with that said, we'll go ahead and move on to the first phase, which would be the actual magnet program for this campus. In assessing the campus as a whole, we did identify multiple classrooms that are being counted as surplus, and so knowing where those surplus classrooms are, we made the decision to locate the magnet program up in the front of the campus. And in addition to looking at that, if we look at the community clinic in conjunction with this project, we want to acknowledge the fact that this is a clinic that would serve the community surrounding Jones Middle School and not necessarily be considered a part of Jones Middle School. So we wanted to place importance on not only creating its own area on the campus with easily identifiable characteristics, but we also felt it was important to introduce a independent parking component so that people that are going to the clinic do not have to go through the Jones campus or enter the Jones campus in any way. And one of the things that was brought up during building committee that we'd like to acknowledge as well is that we could even go as far as to create secure perimeter fencing around the property for the actual clinic to further differentiate from Jones Middle School. And so again, we've located the magnet program up in the front. We've got a little more information to show you about that, and I think a couple of the next phases will explain our reasoning behind that as well. The next phase is quite a bit of work, but we do feel that in assessing the campus, we want to acknowledge some of what we're identifying as opportunities at Jones Middle School. The very first one in this phase is the potential relocation of the existing administration facilities. One of the things we wanted to point out to you is that the administration is actually buried in the middle of the campus currently, so you do have to enter the building and go through the corridor to go into the principal's office and facilities. And furthermore, the counseling suite and the actual attendance office are located on the second floor of the building. And so when we identified that, we felt that it was very advantageous to carve out some of the available space in the front of the campus to actually reset the administration, locate everything on the first floor, and most importantly, introduce a secure vestibule, which I understand is becoming a current Northside standard for a lot of your campuses. So we see the opportunity to introduce that component at Jones Middle School as well. In addition to that, we identified that the boys' locker room, which is highlighted with the numbers 4 on the plan here, is located at the front of the campus, and we felt that if we were able to obtain ownership of the city-owned building, take that building down because it is old and out of shape and really not useful, it served its life, we could actually relocate the boys' PE locker rooms adjacent to the girls' locker rooms and weight room, and we would actually take your auxiliary gymnasium that is currently not attached to your athletic component, and we would actually build a new gym just south of that new PE locker room. So now all of your athletics are in what we consider to be the most ideal location on campus. And so that kind of feeds into the goals that we've established of reorganizing facilities and then also, increasing the aesthetic values of the campus along with the acquisition of that city-owned building. So lastly, we wanted to recognize that there is potential to take the 1975 CTE building that currently houses an art classroom, an ALE classroom, and 2 not necessarily current Northside standard CTE components, and build those to match your now modern day middle school standard for CTE with the wood shop and the engineering / robotics, et cetera, lab component. One of the things that I didn't touch on is that, and you'll see here, we do have a potential deficit of classrooms. We're going to take as many of the surplus rooms we need for the magnet project, but we will potentially be left with some additional classrooms that need to be built. So in the very last phase of the master plan, we do want to acknowledge that there is a space for either CTE or additional classrooms as required. And we identified those spaces at the front of the campus along with the magnet program and then adjacent to the 2011 science edition. And so that actually concludes what we have for you with the master plan, and I'd like to go ahead and give you a little bit more information on the magnet program that we're proposing for Jones. So in addition to the research that we did on the campus as a whole, we actually did sit down and meet with the CTE director and some of the folks that are going to be running this magnet program, as well as the facilities department. And we established the program that you actually see here for the magnet itself. In looking at the magnet program, we wanted to acknowledge the fact that there was a request to have 7 1,000 square foot classrooms, and that is because they intend to use these spaces for project-based learning and really want to branch out and have room to get out of the idea of a standard classroom. And in using that additional square footage, we wanted to acknowledge that the current middle school standard is 800 square feet, so you can see how that compares to that. And even more so, which is important for the use of surplus rooms at Jones, the average classroom size at Jones Middle School is about 650 square feet. So you've got a lot of classrooms that are leaning towards 500 square feet or 700 square feet. There's definitely a little bit of a swing there. So in looking at the classroom components, we've got 3 math classrooms. We have 3 science classrooms that will feed into a shared science lab specifically for the magnet itself. And then we have what we're calling a flex classroom, so that's more for just breakout project-based learning and then for potential growth as well in the future. In addition to that, there is a CTE component in the magnet program, which will comprise of 3 computer labs that will feed into a makerspace lab. So each of these has a specialized area of study that's split up by each grade level, and each one will have access to this magnet makerspace lab. And so you're seeing here we've got support spaces associated with that as well. Lastly, the magnet program does have its own administration suite, so we do want to make sure that we're accounting for the spaces required for that, which we're seeing as a receptionist, conference room program coordinator, academic dean, and then a counselor specifically for the students in the magnet program. The last thing I want to mention before I move on is we do calculate a surplus of classrooms based on speaking to the demographics department for the district. We just want to point out that currently you have 71 teaching spaces at Jones by itself, and it's our understanding that they only need 57, so that leaves a surplus of 14 classrooms. And so looking at all of that information, we are proposing that we would locate the magnet program at the front of the campus. You can see on the key plan here the general location of where that would be. We would need to take up several of the surplus classrooms that are available, but we would also propose a small addition at the front of the campus. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to earmark these 4 classrooms on the first and second floors for our future relocation of the administration. So we don't want to box ourselves into not being able to, in the future, improve the administration area. So there is a small addition being proposed, which you can see in the green area here. And in looking at that, we would actually take all of those CTE components mentioned in the program and locate them downstairs along with the magnet administration, which would geographically on campus be located right next to the Jones administration when we're able to relocate it. And we would actually put one of the 7 classrooms downstairs along with that. So the balance of the spaces, which would be 6 of the magnet classrooms, would be located upstairs, and then we would locate the shared science lab up there as well. In looking at all of this information, we anticipate that we would be taking up 14 classrooms, as mentioned, in addition to another 5, so a total of 19 classrooms in order to put this program in place, leading to a potential deficit of 5 classrooms upon verification of enrollment figures. So we do want to point out that there is potential that in doing this project, we will be looking at needing to supplement with portables on the site. And with that said, that's what we have for you this evening, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
I can't remember if we asked you to change anything at building committee.
Pardon me.
This is all conceptual design. And as you can see, we're planning for the future. And so this is not schematics. We'll come back to give it a little bit more definitive space allocations and things of that nature. So from that perspective, we're asking the board to approve the conceptual design so we can move forward to the next step, which will be the schematic design. Then you'll get the pretty pictures, the fronts and the way it lays out and how it functions, and there's some more dialogue. I will say that this is a product that's been around for about 4 to 5 months, maybe 6 months. I know that staff, including myself, visited various magnet schools around the state, including Dallas and Austin, had a real good dialogue, and what we see here is a product of us actually getting into those classrooms and talking to teachers and students in an effort to be able to make the best possible environment for this particular program. So there's been a lot of research, and shout out goes out to our curriculum instruction folks who are very, very engaged in the process and ask those probing questions of us as to how can we make this all work.
So just to be clear about the ask is for the board to consider the conceptual planning. Essentially what we're talking about is the magnet school being located up in the front of the campus, as was demonstrated, and also at least the approximate location of the community health clinic discussing for quite some time. We feel like this is a good site both within the district and on this overall site. We can, as was pointed out, kind of segregate it from the campus itself. So that's tonight. As Leroy indicates, next phase will be schematic design.
Mr. Blunt.
Yeah, and conceptually, I agree with everything. I just have one detailed question. I may have missed it. On the classroom counts on the last page, I understand existing, required, but I missed it on the provided. And let me tell you why I'm asking that. I'm just asking that from a growth sake. I mean, once we have that there, we're going to be able to handle, and I know you said, potentially a larger student body than what we may have anticipated for this.
We've been through that calculation about 1,000 times. So what we're anticipating, Mr. Blunt, is that similar to what we in our magnet high schools. So we use the magnet high schools as kind of an indicator. Typically about 70% kids in the magnet program are not assigned to that school by attendance boundary. So we've accounted for that number in that account. And as was pointed out, if we in a future item, we could come and look at an addition on this space, but feel like for now, probably the conservative way to treat the space.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
any
remember
other?
that we matriculate through the process where grades are going to be added as we move forward to the magnet schools. So we'll have some time to be able to plan and find out how demographics are with the population.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just had one. I'm looking at this, and I apologize. I had to step out because it's easier to do this. So you had that little area right there. Yeah, and then we had in some of the other pictures we don't have it. So are we going to have that little?
We'll probably come back and do some more study on that, Ms. Chumley, because this is just, we're playing around with blocks and see what relative sizes are going to be. So it could be fill that in if we need more space, or it may be that we keep a portion of that open. Obviously, from a facilities and a management standpoint, those little niches become problematic for security and things of that nature.
In a middle school, they're
so we will be very, very cognizant of making sure that we don't provide more niches in there that could be a security challenge for our campuses as well.
Then it's just, we're going to have it, it's a block and it's at the front of the school.
It's an interesting thing for us to look at further, and because this is conceptual and we'll get to talk to you all about schematic, it does end up fitting into that master plan, because right now that little niche is where you go to get to the gym. And so if we do eliminate that, you wouldn't have in the near term is immediate access into your gym for middle school games. However, from a master plan point of view, that would be resolved in the future by looking at that middle school athletic complex. I know from our debrief on the building committee, there was a question about the weight room, and Andrew did go back and look at that, and actually that will work better too where the existing weight room is. It will now be with both sets of locker rooms.
That's what it was.
actually
I knew
located
there was a question that we had asked at building committee. Okay.
Yes, so it's actually right here. Yes, ma'am.
So,
Fall between the girls' existing locker rooms and future locker rooms.
so one of the things, if you remember at Rayburn, we had a very, very small locker room. And when we went in there and did the addition, we resolved all of that in terms of bringing it to the standards and actually increasing the size of that. It wouldn't be surprising that that's what we would do when we look at future capital improvements for this particular campus, that we have to look at everything in that quadrant, existing and new,
We
obviously.
know for sure we're going to need to increase the size of it to meet our standard.
Right.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Any other discussion, any other questions? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the Jones Middle School Magnet Conceptual Plan?
So moved.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, again, of the conceptual plan for Anson Jones School Magnet, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, hearing no opposition, the ayes have it. We'll move along to schematic designs now. Cody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we have for you is a bus-covered walkway. Part of the 2018 bond program was to increase those walkways that, especially on older schools that don't have another coverage. Obviously, that is something that looked at very, very carefully. The 2018 bond program provided for expansion of existing covered walkway at Cody Elementary Schools. One of the byproducts of when we are in front of a facility is how can we improve the look at that facility? And that has happened a couple of times going back to Scobie, where we actually completely tore out the front of it and gave it a new look, a fresh new look. And some of our buildings, unfortunately, especially the older buildings, are pretty nondescript. They're just a mass of brick and don't have anything to really call attention to the front entry and the fact that it is an elementary school. So we took this opportunity to be able to look at the existing front of the school, and we're able to incorporate a new look, so to speak, which the architects, Chesley Morales, are going to present to you tonight. Richard Morales and Jason Walters are here to give the presentation.
Madam President, board members, Dr. Woods, we're here to present Cody Elementary School. The first thing that I'd like to show you all is the existing school itself. This is the existing school. It's located on Dugas and Fillmore. And this is our area of construction, which is the front canopy, the west canopy, the main entrance to the school, and then a sidewalk that runs over to the right-hand side. If I could direct your attention to photos 1 and 2, it shows the existing canopies. They're flat, and when it rains, the water falls both front and back. And it makes it kind of hard and difficult to get on to have child pickup and so forth. But this is, on photo 3 is the main entrance, and you really can't tell. It's not inviting. It's not very conducive to saying, hey, this is the main entrance, come up to me so you can go to school. So this is the other picture here that shows it from the main entrance to the parking lot, and it shows pebble concrete here that has cracks, big cracks in it that has to get replaced. Photo number 5 and 6 are 5 and 7 are of the ramp. The ramp goes down and it joins the existing covered walk. If you stop right here at the ramp and look to the right, you'll see this picture right here, number 6. And the ground kind of slopes toward the covered walkway here, and the water just runs right over the sidewalk. So these are some of the issues with it. The other thing is that there's two benches that are existing there, right underneath the front entrance as well. Jason Walters will present the building.
Good evening. The next slide we have, sorry, I went too far. Next slide we have is our proposed overall site plan. And here we're proposing to remove the existing canopy that goes up towards the main entrance, as well as a portion of the existing canopy where the drop-off is in the front. And we're proposing to build a new canopy that actually creates more of an identifier in front of the school. So we'll have a new metal, we'll see in the next slide, a new tower that kind of invites everyone to the front of the campus. We're proposing a new canopy that goes back to the main entrance, as well as extending the existing canopy out about 93 feet, I think is what we have on the dimension there. And on the existing canopy would remain. Existing canopy back here would remain, and existing canopy here. We're looking into replacing the roof for those, as well as maybe livening up with providing new paint. On the next slide, we have our proposed partial site plan. So we have the new tower here, which you can see in the elevation, where we have brick columns with a new metal canopy. We're also proposing a soffit panel up here that matches the back existing soffit in the existing campus, in the existing building. And we're also proposing a new school identifier, a new sign there with metal panel and aluminum letters. We're in demoing the existing canopy. We're also demoing the concrete and the sidewalk. So we're proposing new structural foundation for the new canopy that we're doing here. Because the existing ramp is non-ADA compliant, we're also removing that existing ramp and proposing a new accessible ramp, which would be underneath the existing canopy that we're proposing back here. And we're proposing to put that underneath the canopy to help with any rain that comes from the side. So in this elevation, you'll see we're extending the new canopy out. We're matching the construction of the existing canopy. And then we're also adding some color to the existing canopies, as well as a new canopy to bring some color into the elevation.
That's pretty.
One of the comments that came up in the building committee was to add some benches or find seating area. So we did include new benches underneath the existing canopy, underneath the new canopy. And then the next slide.
That's nice.
The next slide, you'll see the section that's the longitudinal section. The existing canopy is kind of a low canopy that you saw on the photos, so we're proposing to lift that up to match the soffit of the building, which will give you 11 foot, roughly about 11'6" here, which kind of opens it up, makes it more inviting, more light coming in. And then we're looking at with our brick accent colors here as well as the new brick there. And then on this section, it will be a section through the new canopy, the tower, and the existing canopy on that side. And then this section is just showing the existing condition, where we're also proposing to extend the sidewalk out an additional 4'6", and that is because the existing columns are only about 9 inches away from the curb. So we're proposing to extend that out for when you drop off your child in the front. And this is just a perspective that shows the new tower. It's a little more inviting as you come up. And also you can see it from the side streets as you're coming up. We are proposing the red, red metal roof that goes with the school logo colors. And then you can see the colors on the canopy on the columns.
That's going to make that look a whole lot nicer.
And then here's another perspective. Looking the opposite way, we have the existing canopy here. You have the new tower. You have that back canopy in the back there that's a little higher. And then we're also needing to we'll have to put a new canopy here for the ramp that's on that back portion that's a little bit higher due to the grade elevations. And then our last slide is just a close-up of more of the front entrance. And that concludes our presentation.
Ms. Chumley?
So we reviewed this in building committee, and I think that everyone liked it. It really is going to look really nice. Just one question. So we're taking out all the concrete, and so we're not changing the grade of that front run. So we're going to have the runoff still. Are we putting in like French drains or?
Yes.
Leroy, how is that?
As a matter of fact,
what are we going
had
to do
long
to take care of that?
discussions about drainage on this particular campus. It does have a sloping front, so to speak, comes from the building down. And that means that the water that hits that surface just cascades literally over the. So what we're doing is we are going to look at, and of course this is more detailed as we get into the drawings, the working drawings, but we already decided in our heads that we needed to do something to alleviate and to resolve the issue of water, hitting the areas where the canopy is and migrating it to an underground system that goes out to the front, so to speak. We found some existing drainage systems that are there, and we're checking to make sure they're still active, and we'll get into a lot more detail. Answer the question is we're gonna resolve literally, if not everything, in terms of drainage in front of that school.
And you'll just let us know that later on as you go and how you're going to do that.
Absolutely.
Can any of y'all remember, there was that one school and there was something designed on the front where it had really different kind of unique kind of seating, and then it had some kind of, I don't know if it was a display where that we said that they could put vinyl signs, or it was a game, or
FM 471, number 4, which was designed by Garza and Barbary, had that piece where they could put something in there in terms of a signage and things of that nature. That was the.
Well, and the seating was different. It was those little round, little round stools. I'm just wondering if we could, because we're really doing a really great facelift, which is different, and this is a lot older school. But I'm wondering if we can stay within budget, kind of do some of those, look at kind of some of those fun kind of things that we're seeing at that new elementary. Do that here. If Dr.
Good.
Woods, are you all right with us doing that?
Good. That's really a low cost, real minimal type of.
Well, that's what I was
impact.
thinking, and I appreciate you putting the benches back in. So I'm wondering if y'all couldn't take another run at that and try to figure out some kind of, I don't know, just something different, because we see those cute little kind of aesthetic features on our new schools, and it'd be nice to be able to give it to one of our older schools.
That's a good idea.
So if y'all
We
don't
could
mind.
follow up with that, Ms. Chumley. Right now, we're under a time schedule, so we're asking the board to approve this in schematic so they can get working, because we've got to put it out for bids quickly. And then we'll circle back around and look at features in front
Because
of
that
the
shouldn't be
schools,
that
but
hard to add,
it should not.
into it, and I'm sure our contractors are gonna be great and give us a really good price for this.
Oh, I hope so.
So, I move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Good. Do I hear a motion to approve the schematic design then for Ed Cody Elementary School? One more time, just approve.
I move approval. I mean, I so moved.
I didn't actually call. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any nays? All right, hearing none, the ayes have it. We'll move on now to the schematic
Thank
design
y'all.
for Sam Rayburn.
So, Sam Rayburn, what can I say about Sam Rayburn? I know know since I've been here, 4 bond programs already. We've been at Rayburn. However, the 2018
Beautiful, though. It's
bond program
beautiful.
provided for a new theater arts addition to the existing school. A noteworthy point is that one of the few middle schools that we do not have a dedicated facility for it. So as a result of that, we did ask Mormon and Mock, Monty Howard, who's passing out the presentation, to take a look at it, being since he was already there. And we figured he needed to finish out what he started, so to speak. So Mormon and Mock is the architect, and Monty will give us a brief presentation on a new addition for the theater arts.
Good evening, President Harrell, trustees, Dr. Woods, staff. Like they already said, this will be a very brief presentation on the fine arts addition to Rayburn Middle School. It's a very simple project, not real big. As you may recall from the master plan that we showed y'all at the beginning of the current work on campus, the fine arts addition is a piece that's going to go on the back of the cafeteria here. It's next to the last part of the ultimate rebuild out of the campus. It completes the fine arts program, most of which exists in Building B right here, and includes the addition of the music department that we added in the current bond project. Okay, as you see here, it zooms in a little bit. This is the existing cafeteria building and girls' athletics next to that, and then the new boys' athletics is just beyond that. This is the courtyard space in here that's presently being finished where the old Building B used to be. And then this is the band hall addition that we added to Building B with the current bond work. So you can see that all the arts, including the art classrooms here, are kind of in this quadrant of the campus now. And this is a capability that was not on campus before. I believe that they're probably just using the platform right now for most of their drama work. But now they will have a dedicated space just like the rest of the middle schools in the district. What we'll be adding to the back of the platform area is the fine arts classroom, the drama classroom right here, program space for storage, and then we're adding a component that's normally associated with the platform in the fine arts lab itself. It's the dressing rooms, boys and girls. We feel like that'll lend quite a bit of flexibility to the use of the platform as well moving into the future. You can stage a lot of things back here, get a lot of things ready, and then move into the platform space for performances. Another thing that we were asked to do was look at the cafeteria itself and the platform. The existing platform is slightly under program, so we'll be looking at doing about a 6-foot expansion of that space into the cafeteria. Right now, the cafeteria is actually over-programmed for the district, so we really won't be compromising the seating space in that campus, and this is a slightly smaller population on this campus anyway. So we're well within the limits and capabilities of the campus by doing this. One of the things that we'll be doing is opening up the ramp to view from the seating area out in the cafeteria for special programs and recognitions where kids who need to use that ramp really don't get seen moving up on the stage like the ambulatory kids do. So that will lend a lot more equality of visibility to the use of the platform as well. The rest of the storage spaces will remain as they are. Access will be from a door, outside door here with a ramp that comes off the main patio and stairs that come up from the fine arts side of the campus as well. A lot of the movement of musical instruments will happen along a rolling pathway here that moves into the stage and can come up on the front or can come into the back. We're also adding custodial access to the dumpsters behind the campus. It's kind of a look at how we see the work developing. Again, we would demo an existing canopy right there. Begin the work on the new drama lab itself, begin demolition on the interior portion as time allows across the summer, and then complete construction next year. A little bit closer look, you can see the drama lab here, boys and girls dressing room, the connection to the existing platform with the new ramp, rebuilt ramp, and then the addition to the front of the platform there. This is kind of a look at what it'll look like. This is a very strong presence on the campus for the existing cafeteria and gymnasium building is now. We looked at a couple of possibilities with that and thought it would probably be best to stick with the existing aesthetics in that part of the campus. What you see here is the addition itself from the front-on view looking at it from the new band building, Building B. Side view looking at it from the courtyard. You can see, or actually from, well, behind courtyard. You can see the existing band, or the new band hall here that is currently under construction, and then our addition will happen here on the edge of the library. And then this is looking at it from the new courtyard, the new fine arts addition here, the new band hall here, the existing cafeteria, and the existing gymnasium. Kind of a sensitive button. Okay, here we go. Back to the other side. Okay, there you go. This is a look from the back of the campus to the new band hall addition here. I mean, the new fine arts addition here. This is the new band hall addition there, building J in the background, and part of the existing cafeteria kitchen area. This is a look from the new courtyard as it will end up being developed. This will fit very nicely into the rest of the architecture on the campus. This is again the ramped entry into the drama classroom, and then the stepped entry from building B. So look at what the inside of the building will look like. This will be the new proscenium as we move it out about 6 feet. You can see the open ramp here on this side. We're going to go to basically use the same burnished block that's on the proscenium front right now, but we thought we'd simplify this a little bit and go to more of a monolithic color. The rest of the cafeteria colors would remain as they are, which is a red band around the top of the room. And then the graphics on the floor will stay as they are too. These are some of the existing views of the room as it stands right now. And with that, any questions?
Ms. Reed? Okay.
I would say that I think it looks great, and I would move approval of it.
Okay, we had a motion to approve and a second to approve the schematic fine arts upgrades at San Rayburn Middle School. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, it's been approved, and we'll move forward to the schematic design for Greg Luna, and thank you very much.
The last item we have for you tonight is the schematic design approval, or the schematic design for approval for the science lab at Luna Middle School. As some of you may know, as bond programs go on, we always take the opportunity to be able to enhance our sciences throughout the middle school's programs. And so today we have Garza Baumberger, we got Roy Lewis, who is going to give us a presentation. Some of you may remember that we had been at Luna previously to do a classroom addition, and we left a shell there because we could afford to be able to put a shell and then come back and repopulate it, put classrooms, because as you well know, science rooms take up a lot more space on an existing campus, and so therefore we've got to be able to make up space somewhere. So Roy will be here to give you the presentation.
Good evening, Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, members of the board. Thank you for having me here tonight. We are here to present the schematic design for the science lab additions and renovations at Gregory Luna Middle School. As Leroy mentioned earlier, this process started about 5 years ago when we did the 7 classroom addition to Luna. At the time, we discussed the probable need for the modification to the labs at a later date. Therefore, we did create a shelled space on the second floor of that classroom addition. As you see in the site plan, the areas in red denote the areas where the existing science classrooms currently exist. They are rather small. They're a little over 1,000 feet. And of course, bringing them up to the new design guide standards where they'll be brought up to 1,400 square feet. The areas in red, if you look at the plans, the science classrooms in Luna were dispersed within the grade levels. Therefore, you have 3 science labs that are on the first floor in the G wing, 3 on the second floor in the F wing, and then 3 more on the second floor of the G wing as well. What we're showing here is that you have a demolition plan of where we plan to gut the original science classrooms. In addition to that, we will take an extra classroom, which will be displaced with this expansion. Those classrooms would then be moved over to the shell space at the second floor of the building addition. Each science lab will be, as I mentioned, a 1,400 square feet with an appropriate size prep room in between. The areas that we looked at, or the existing areas, had some existing columns within the original classrooms. Those columns posed a challenge for us with the newer, larger classrooms, and therefore we are actually moving the teaching wall from the corridor side to the exterior wall of the building. And that's because of these columns in these locations. As you can see on the enlarged plan there, students will now come in, the tables will be in the middle, and then the teaching wall will be along the exterior facade or exterior wall of the building. This will require us to do a little bit of modification to the exterior windows. As you can see here, this is an existing elevation of one of the windows at the front facade of the building. What the plan is we will infill the windows up to a point just above 7 feet so that you will still have the natural daylight coming into the classrooms. Again, in this wing, in each area, we will do a total gutting of the area. We'll replace the floors, the ceilings, come back in with new casework in each one to give them an updated space. We do feel like on the exterior facade, we'll be able to match the building as closely as possible. We did it on the building addition, so we'll be bringing those materials to you at the time that the project bids.
Just real quick, the reason that we're doing this to the windows?
Those particular classrooms have columns that are in the way in the classroom that if you put the teaching wall along the corridor, those columns would present an obstruction to the kids in some parts of the room. Therefore, the teaching wall is being moved to the exterior wall. The window is raised up so that it'll be above the marker boards and things like that, but it'll still allow daylight into the room. And actually, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't see any questions. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the schematic? To the schematic design for the science lab addition at Gregory Luna Middle School. Ms. Reed?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of schematic design, say aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing no nays, we'll move forward now to business and finance, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Resolution to nominate candidates for Board of Directors of the Bexar County Appraisal District. Mr. Astellini.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Thank you.
This evening,
Thank you, students.
I can't believe they're leaving on me.
I know.
Right to when you get
Boy.
to the good part.
This stuff, this stuff is riveting.
Professor Margot decides to leave now.
Oh, my goodness. As required under the property tax code, every 2 years, member districts of county appraisal districts have the opportunity to make nomination to the board of directors. This evening, we are bringing a recommendation for the board to consider nominating George Torres to serve on the Bexar County Appraisal District. George, I believe this will be his third term doing that as well. He's graciously said that he is willing to serve and done us a good job. Before I do ask for recommendation, just keep in mind that you are eligible to nominate for each position, so we could actually nominate 5 positions for not only the Bear County Appraisal District, but also the nominations for Medina and Bandera County. However, it's not been practiced in the past for this to nominate to the other two counties, simply because our participation is allocation of votes is pretty minimal. We do anticipate Bandera, our vote allocation is going to be about 72 votes out of 6,000 and 120 out of 5,000 for Medina. However, in Bear County, we will be allocated over 1,000 votes. By far, we are the heavyweight, if you will. That typically gives us enough to elect one director with a significant portion to allocate to another director. We do anticipate bringing the slate of candidates for the boards in November. There is only one other entity in the county appraisal district that does or will be allocated enough votes to elect a representative as well. So all that being said, at this time, we would recommend that you approve by resolution nomination of George Torres to serve for term as director for 2021.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Reed? Ms. Chumbley, was that from last time too?
No, I was going to move.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to move that we approve George Torres as our nominee for Bear Appraisal.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, hearing no nays, we'll move forward now with the first reading of policies AE, BDAE, CE, CHE, DEA, and DEAB. Mr. Rostellini.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. We have brought, or we did bring several recommendations for policy revision to the Finance Committee back in June. We did see one that was approved tonight on second reading from personnel. We had some recommendations on that one, and also on August 20th, we did approve second reading CCA local, which was one of the other policies that we did review in June. This leaves us with 6 policies that you see tonight for first reading. This is discussion only. I did prepare the Rastellini version of explanatory notes. I hope that is sufficient for explanation, but I will go through those just in case anybody has any other questions. So on the first one, AE local, the changes that we're recommending, actually there's references to exhibits that no longer exist, and we're recommending that those be pulled out. On policy BDAE, this particular policy, all amending here is an update of the Deputy Superintendent for Business and Finance. It's listed in the policy as Deputy Superintendent of Support Services. And we did add or designee, which is consistent with other policies that we do have related to these issues. The next update we have, CE Local. This is the annual operating budget policy. We did have some changes that were made in 2018 that the board did approve, and I believe your copy in your board packet, you'll notice those changes I still left in a blue font, so you could see that most of our significant changes there were made in July. So what we're recommending is one cleanup change. Quite frankly, it's where we talk about the amendments to we originally left everything as increase, and at times we do decrease the budget, so we needed to add that terminology as well. CHE, local purchasing, acquisition, vendor relations. Again, this is a cleanup language item. And we did add on this one where the board would determine where any protest, vendor protest would be heard in either open session or closed session. So that is, one change, quite frankly, of substance.
And why would we want to be the one to make that decision?
Well, it could be.
Normally, we leave that up to
the
whoever
vendor.
Well, to whoever the person is that's.
Yes. It just depends. When you would request that it be in closed session or determine it would be in closed session, it's going to be based on open meetings records. I mean, there may be an issue that in fact you do not want, for legal reasons, may not want to discuss in open session. So you'll be able to make those determinations. You can and do it in open session, but there'll be situations, or could be situations, where in fact the option
David, we
does
usually do
exist.
all of them in closed. I mean, I can't think of any grievances that we've had where we've had it in open.
Typically because they involve personnel or student issues, which you could not
Right.
easily do in open in most cases. This just expands.
I just don't particularly think I would ever want to do a vendor grievance either in open.
No, there may be times, Ms. Chumley, that you could not take it into closed session.
Ms. Reed, did you have
Depending
more
on the
questions?
challenge.
Okay. Ms. Freeman?
So the person who's grieving, I always thought that person had the opportunity to bring it into open.
Correct.
I thought they were the ones that made the decision, not us.
That's generally true, unless the grievance involves a matter of a student, in which case there would not be a choice, there would not be an option. Typically, the few that you all have heard have been personnel related, and so in that case, that individual does have that choice. In this case, we're saying that the district's going to determine, based upon the law and the nature of the protest, whether it's in open or closed.
Mr. Blunt, did you have a question?
No, yeah, Karen partially asked what I asked, but again, Ms. way I read it also is, either way, if it's in compliance with it being open, the district not gonna have a choice, we're going to have to allow it in open. Just say, hey, in the end, they gotta know that, yeah, we're gonna determine based on the facts, not, if it read the other way, then they could just demand, hey, your policy says it has to be, now we're in conflict if it's the opposite way of what it should be.
Yeah, I just don't like anything in open when it's a
Right.
grievance.
Yeah, but in some cases, we don't have a
just-
choice.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to give a vendor an opportunity to have it in open, so as long as we make the decision on it.
And typically, when you have vendor issues like this, Ms. Chumley, they're usually in regard to challenges to a bid process or something along those lines, so.
Well, when you have it enclosed, you can control who
Yes,
is actually
yes,
here, too. I'm just thinking of some of the weird things that we've had.
Well, fortunately, we have
Historically.
such an outstanding superintendent of the year, they usually get those settled before they ever get to you, anyway, so that's a good thing. On policy DEA, moving right along, policy DEA local, we are recommending taking out some obsolete language right in the middle of the page, so this is just a cleanup item. And the last policy that we have, excuse me, DEAB local, again, this is some cleanup and as it relates to what the district is actually practicing, but this is some cleanup items on compensatory time that's paid to employees over 120 hours. So these are presented for discussion or first reading this evening, and certainly if there's any particular item that a board member needs some explanation on, I'm more than happy to. Okay. And we're recommending no action.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to administration request for maximum class size waivers. Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. So tonight is the first installment, but typically is for 6 months, a request for waivers in any classroom that we're over 22, as you know, K through 4. Texas law states that we should have a maximum of 22 students. And so for tonight, the request is, as this first round, that we ask for waivers for 129 classrooms out of 1,882, which really is just 6.8% of our classrooms that are over the limit of 22. Obviously, as I've mentioned in the past, they look at the overall average of the all of the classrooms, so we're well below the 22, which is 20.03. And so the schools range from, there really is no pattern from north to south, and a total of 42 of the 79 elementary campuses have a classroom that's over 22. By comparison, these 129, last year this meeting we had 118 class waivers, and so the request is for approval of 129.
Are there any questions or any discussion? All right, Ms. Reed, your light's back on, but, okay, second? There's been a motion to approve the class size waivers with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no or nay. All right, hearing none, we'll move forward now with, gotta change it up a little bit, Bobby. Declaration of Respect. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. For the past several years, the district has held a Declaration of Respect signing day for students in all grades, K-12, and staff to promote anti-bullying in our schools. Dr. Kim Ridgely, our Director of Guidance and Counseling, leads this program. This day is set for October 11th, 2019. This will be the 8th annual district-wide signing day for students and staff. Counselors are equipped with training and materials to roll out to our classrooms and teach the skills necessary to promote safe and respectful and healthy school climate. So we're going to ask the members of our board, like we did the Code of Ethics, to sign a big, large declaration of respect, and we'll take a picture and the whole 9 yards, and then that'll be shared with folks prior to that October 11th signing day.
You want us to go forward, or it'll just come?
I do need a picture at the end, so however.
All right,
Okay.
in that case, might as well go.
All right, good to go. Yeah.
No jackets in this one. Ties are mandatory, however.
All right. Y'all wanna go
That
to
was
sign?
ugly, I apologize. I am. With allies like me, you don't need it.
Thought you had my back.
I do.
Has the rest of the board seen that word in board operating procedure?
Columns. I mean, my board calendar, for the NISD, the calendar, my email. Who would that be?
It didn't sound like I was.
Probably because I stole it off that
So what happens is, if I look on my phone and look on the email, if I delete some things, or sometimes it's not in my calendar that I open up on my laptop, I don't understand why, when I delete it, I don't know why, I don't know where it went.
So it
I
doesn't,
can show, I've got emails that are on
Yeah,
my
it doesn't.
phone that I cannot pick up here. I can search for them when I
Did you make any notes on it?
then they come up.
Right on
it might
time?
go into,
That's
some of
what
mine go
wrestling is.
here, but I get them on my phone because I don't have
You
that
should have
same
seen it on
wall.
Sunday evening.
So when I
Oh my gosh.
I just send a bunch of
Craziness?
downloads.
Oh my
I downloaded
goodness, it
some
was
stuff
crazy.
from the Texas, some notes, I get different emails on here than I do. Like it takes everybody.
Oh, picture. Sorry.
That's okay, we have the blue. We got here. Katie, you hold that, or there you go. Several pictures.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we'll move to board operating procedures. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. As the board will remember, we discussed the operating procedures at our meeting in mid-July. There were some changes in it. I took my notes from that discussion and crafted the changes that you see highlighted, I think, in red. Is that correct? So we brought this a couple of times, but all the members of the board thought it was important to wait for a night where we had the full board to have that conversation. So what you see in red are the changes that I recall from that conversation.
Ms. Chumley?
I apologize, guys, that I wasn't here last meeting when y'all had looked at this, but I've got a question on it. I just want to.
To be clear, we haven't
you haven't
taken
looked
this
at
up
it?
at all.
Haven't looked at it at all.
We
Okay.
skipped it completely.
You moved it. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, then, my thank you for y'all doing that. Required board training, I'm assuming that just comes straight out of the law of what, okay. And then, new to the board. Trying to figure out a way to say this. So G and H on page 5. Doesn't sound like how we normally write board operating procedures. And I'll give an example. A board member retains bond to an individual, but must understand that such communication may be interpreted as being an official statement of the board. In addition, board members should remember the rapid nature of social media community and always hold themselves to an expectation of professionalism in any and all communications. So I'm thinking I would not write a policy that said the superintendent needs to hold himself to an expectation of professionalism in any and all communications. I would assume that the superintendent knows that and does that. And I don't know, it just, I'm not articulating this right very well. I don't know. So the way I'm looking at it when I read that is there's an assumption that we wouldn't do that. Reminder that we need to be professional in our social media. And I don't think we need that reminder in our board operating procedures. I don't know, it doesn't sound like the rest, when you look at the rest of our board operating procedures, I just don't think it sounds the same. But I will err to what the rest of the board, I don't know, it just, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with that, and my recommendation is that we go back and take another run at it.
Okay. Ms. Reed?
I have a couple of things. the first one was about the training that Melissa was talking about. I'm not sure that I understand the 3 hours minimum that has to be about student achievement training. Have we done any of that yet?
We did 2 summers ago. Or 1 summer ago, it's a biannual requirement.
Fine. But for new board members, intermediate. I just don't remember, I guess, doing that. I evidently have a bad memory. I skip
No,
course all the time.
well, no, I think it was that, at the XG.
No, it's
No,
Senate Bill
no, not the
15.
XG. What, that was the one that didn't we have somebody
Senate Bill
come in
1560, Bill Rutherford.
we had Bill Rutherford. That was when Bill Rutherford came in.
1566.
Yeah.
That was,
Okay, I will let that one go. We do enough of that here locally. We don't need to have outside training for it, I don't think. So, anyway, that's.
I think it was required, it was the law, Senate Bill.
Yeah, okay. One of the other ones that I had, I didn't actually mark the one that Melissa was just talking about, but I would agree, in practice, what I have done for almost 30 years is if I get a phone call, I send them to somebody else. I don't communicate directly with them, even though some guy yelled at me one time really badly. And he said, "You're not listening." And I said, "No, I can't, because if this ever gets back to me, I will be, listening to it as a person who has to vote on it." So, the better thing, I think, is that if we have a phone call or correspondence, we send it on to the proper place that it needs to go, and we don't really do any corresponding or continue to work with that person on a phone call. That's been my philosophy, and I thought that was what the board philosophy was, that we send them to where they need to be. And it's either to you or to the superintendent. So I just think there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that doesn't need to be there. And some of the one on H also talks about social media interactions. I think we have to be really careful with social media interactions, because it could be perceived that it is a position of the entire board or the school district. So just need to make sure that that's the reasoning behind that one. Where it taught later on under K and L, it's kind of the same kind of thing, correspondence on behalf of the board. Any correspondence, I don't know whose correspondence on behalf of the board that would be. Would that be the board president or what? It's kind of vague to me, I'm not sure. Correspondence, it says on behalf of the board. So anyway, those
Yeah, I think that's a board
implications
president.
and any letters that would be written for publication, usually that's all the board president does. The board president speaks for the board. The rest of the board does not speak for the board. So I'm just thinking that a lot of this is additional stuff that we don't really need. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Freeman?
And I forgot to turn my sound on.
We're going over these. We might want to take each one individually, and if we're going to approve these, or if we have the intent of approving, we may want to go ahead and modify them as we talk about them. I don't know how. I've got a couple of suggestions. One of them regarding the training, in the 1566 language, it actually, regarding student achievement, it actually says evaluating student performance. I would just suggest we change that so that it's just more clear.
Okay,
There's
going
some language-
back to your suggestion, though, if we want to do that, we certainly can, and I think that way, how does the rest of the board feel about that? Just the items that are in red? All right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, we have the option of bringing anything else up.
Okay.
here.
Sure.
But-
All right, did you want to finish? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. I was just suggesting that when I think of
that's a good
student
idea.
achievement, I just
Okay.
think of the initiative student achievement. I was just suggesting the language in 56 says evaluation of student academic performance.
Okay.
Or
Student academic.
based on, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Blunt.
Say just based on Karen said and how I know we've done times in the past, just go section by section.
Right.
That way you cover red or if anybody else has anything else.
That's a good idea, Mr. Blunt. Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, no, I'll make my recommendations when we review it. So that-
Okay, Ms. Chumley?
No, I was going to wait until everyone
Okay.
finished, and I'll make mine at the same.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, we're going to go through each item that's in red.
Oh, everything.
Oh, everything.
Section by section.
Oh, section
Just
by
call the section
section.
out or
Okay.
whatever, or
All
whatever
right,
number.
team operating procedures agreement, 1 through 5. Any changes to that?
I think we were all good on that one.
Okay, supermajority. All right. Roman numeral 1, candidate, new board member orientation.
You know what, can I go back real quick to the number 5, team operating procedures? You know, supermajority of team, meaning 5 of 7 trustees must agree to any change of the team operating procedures. Do you think that that's too high of a threshold to change any of the operating procedures?
No.
Good question. Ms. Freeman?
I was
Nobody
just going to
feels,
suggest, in the past, it used to be 100%.
It was,
right,
and
7 and 7.
yeah.
so,
And we thought at that time, it was a good idea to have it 100%. Now, we had a lengthy discussion about why perhaps we could decrease that to a supermajority,
okay.
just to insulate us.
Insulation from what? As far as what, takeover, or like, I mean, I don't know, what would be an insulation of what?
Just so that most of the board, more than 50% of the board bought into the change. Because these are things that we live by. That was just the thought behind there.
All right, any other discussion? All right, let's move on to new board membership. All right. Required board training, other than the terminology of the Senate bill and use of the evaluation of student academic performance, we would use the exact verbiage of the Senate bill. Okay. What about B? Everybody okay? And so the same language would be experienced trustees must also have that same
Training. I would just say
training.
training on evaluating student academic performance.
Of student academic performance. Okay. All right. Under meetings, section 3.
Oh,
Take all.
yes, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Karen.
So addressing the board during a public hearing, that still needs to be on an agenda item.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I don't know that it says that here.
it's the public hearing. That was a piece of it, Karen, was the public hearing piece.
So on that particular subject, though.
Right. Well, remember when we had, we had a public hearing and piece of the agenda and someone wanted to speak to it and we didn't have, they hadn't signed up to do that.
Right.
And so it was just addressing the public hearing piece of it as well as that they can speak to the public hearing, but they still need to sign up for it just as they do any other agenda item.
I guess I just think that it could be ambiguous here, I mean, we can't just have someone address the board during a public hearing. It has to be specifically on that agenda item. That's all I'm saying here. It can't be on anything they decide to discuss.
Do you want to just put it, so in the first one, it says citizens be heard, portion of the agenda or speak directly to any agenda item by registering prior, so it could be citizens heard portion of the agenda,
Patrons may also
direct agenda item or public hearing.
by signing up.
I don't know. That was just my opinion. What do y'all think?
I think it was just to clarify it, and I think we just put it in there to clarify that
Right.
that one time when someone wanted to, it was
You don't think it's necessary?
We had that open dialogue going on that one time during the public hearing. So I think it was just to address that they have to,
Right.
they have to sign up and follow the same rules if they want to speak during the
So
public
after,
hearing.
where it says of the agenda, no period, and say by signing up to address, or must sign up to address the board, so it's together? Would that be less ambiguous? Just leave it the same?
I just take out also.
Which one are you looking at?
Two in red.
A2,
A2? So do we need to add in there, that, call board meetings also? Because it used to be they could not address us during a called board meeting, which usually is a public hearing a lot of times.
That's a good point.
But now it's been changed that says you have to allow them to,
Good point.
address the board during a called board meeting also.
But only on an agenda item.
Right.
They can't just talk about anything.
Right. I don't know.
doesn't that still go under public hearing? Whether it's called or not?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you don't think it needs to be there?
I don't, but
Okay, it's just a change in policy from what we
sure,
had.
or a
That's why I
change
was
in
trying to figure
practice.
out whether we needed to specify or not.
Okay.
If you don't think so, that's fine.
Okay, Karen, did you want to wordsmith that one more time to?
No, it's actually, it should be, I mean, we don't have TASB rules on that, but that was something that came across in law that we have to allow patrons to address the board during a called meeting, but only specifically on an agenda item.
Which is consistent with our practice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just take out also.
Where do you see also? Oh, patrons may address.
Also, yeah, just patrons may
Sure.
address.
Okay, B, and
On the page 3 of this, is this something that we need, we need to come back and talk to since there has been that change?
the 3 minutes? Which one are you talking?
Well, what I learned at TASB is that the change that came in the bill this last session says, so as an example, when we had all those people that had come to speak FID, and we asked them to consolidate and only have that, now all of them would have their right to their 3 minutes. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So-
But you can control it by saying citizens to be heard will only be
A certain amount of time.
a certain amount of time. Or you can control it that people that want to speak have to sign up prior to a certain time, like 4 o'clock that day, to give us an idea of what we're looking at from the citizens to be heard perspective. There's just ways. Anyway, I'm not sure if we change this now, but I do think it's something that we need to be aware of, the changes that came out of the last session and how that could impact us.
I would recommend that we wait until we consider the local policy and let the board decide what the local policy is going to be before we
Right.
adjust here.
Okay.
Yep.
Because you're right, because it is going to be a local policy, right? Okay, that makes more sense. I suggest we do that too.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything on page 4? Anything under section 4, communication?
On page 4?
The bottom of page 4 going on to page 5.
Okay, so my remembrance of the board, of our discussion at our board retreat was that we were going to create a piece on social media, not one in relation to phone calls, or written correspondence, because we have a complaint area that's further down in our policy that we have spent a lot of time on previously, making sure that we were all comfortable with that. So I guess I've got a question as to, I thought it was solely on social media that we were, and what my suggestion on wordsmithing, so text message or social media from constituents, comma, all such responses may be subject to Public Information Act request and may be applicable to the Texas Open Meetings Act, period. And then take all the nets off.
All the way up to what,
So what I'm saying is board members may respond to phone calls, written correspondence, including email, text messages, social media from constituents, but should bear from constituents, comma, all responses may be subject to Public Information Act request and may be after the Texas Open Meetings Act, period. And then just take the last sentence off completely.
So it depends upon what you do, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Reed.
It depends upon what you're going to mean by responding to phone calls, how you're going to respond to them, which is my concern, because normally we just send it to the appropriate person here at central office. We don't get into the middle of that discussion. And that's why later on, it actually says there in K and L, it pretty much covers that somebody else is doing all that, not that we're doing this.
Well, and then Katie, if you go under complaints, it says the board member will refer the citizen to the appropriate person, chain of command, or to the complaint resolution procedure as described in the student parent handbook or board policy. And I thought that's where we addressed those.
Where's that?
That's on page 6, the bottom of page 6.
Further down at the bottom.
So to me, some of this is kind of repetitious. I just want someplace in there to say, this is not our responsibility to be getting into big conversations with somebody that calls you on the phone or sends you a letter.
well, I think that's part of our role, though. Because otherwise, why would we have our email address and phone number put it on the website? Because it's to allow that ability to the constituents to call us and ask us and just ask for guidance. So,
But I think you're both saying the same thing. It's just after you take the call and listen, referring it to
Yeah,
the
and that's what we've
appropriate.
always done.
Yeah.
I've always done that.
And
but-
it's, yeah, I thought G was a little repetitious. H, though, we did about, and there was agreement that we would make sure that, I'm trying to see where it says, indicate that their posts on social media are their individual opinions and do not represent the official position of the board or district. And,
See,
I went ahead and did that because we were so strongly in that. So I think G is covered in other places, maybe perhaps not in the social media way that you were saying, Ms. Chumley, but
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand the purpose of G, because I thought it really was what we had said is that we were going to put a new piece in our board operating procedures in relation to social.
and that really is H then, right?
Yeah, and I think
that-
that we already know we can respond to phone calls, written correspondence, and we have it later on down in it that on complaints, unless we're talking about, well, if you have something that's written correspondence that's not a complaint, but I think that we all have agreed on and very much supported what we have in complaints about referring it, getting people back into the chain of command. So, and then in H, I would just take off the very last sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a consensus to omit G?
I'm hearing there is. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, and then what about the last sentence of H? I think it's said in multiple ways throughout the document and certainly understood, but
I don't particularly think that in board operating procedures, we need to remind each other that there is an expectation of professionalism in any and all of our communications. And I personally think if we had applied that towards staff, that staff would not feel comfortable that we were reminding them to be professional in their position. And, I know that Dr. Woods got a lot of this from another school district's wording, but this just doesn't sound like him either. And so I would really prefer to have the last sentence gone.
Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, we do that, but I tell you, it's in a different area.
Mm-hmm.
It's code of ethics. Now, if we want to look at
Yes.
the code of ethics, I mean, because that all implies, we're going to
Our
have, et
behavior.
cetera, et cetera, so.
Well, in the code of ethics, it says we will act professionally, so
that's
I
what I
don't
mean.
need a reminder of it
Yeah.
in our operating procedures.
But, I mean, yeah, to me, if it's in the code of ethics, I think I think it's covered, the second sentence.
Okay.
And that's
Or if
really,
not, we should make
that's
sure it
really
is.
more out in the open to me, the code of ethics.
Okay, so we're all good?
Yep.
I'm looking around, we're all good? All right. Anything now on page 6? And thanks for adding grandparent.
We talked about it.
We
We've
did.
talked about all of this.
We did.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please?
Mhm.
When we're talking about any correspondence on behalf of the board, who would be providing correspondence on behalf of the board?
Should be the board president. Katie, where that comes from is the one time years and years and years ago where we had a trustee that wrote an editorial, and none of the trustees were aware that an editorial was being written, and it was signed as a board trustee. And it just caught us off guard, and so we just asked that in the future, anything a board member sends out where they're signing it as a Northside Board trustee, that they just let the rest of the board know that they're sending it. It wasn't even that we were gonna,
Well, this says approval.
you know,
Not just notification, but approval.
Viewed and approved.
I've forgotten about that piece of it.
And
I just know that was
probably
where,
not encourage
Versus
anybody to do it
apprised
before.
of.
that was where that came from.
So do we want to keep approved by the board or apprised?
Yeah, I think approved is actually better because we don't want somebody out there putting something in that the rest of us are not,
Well, and actually somebody could, they just need to do it from their own name, that they're sending it as a personal individual, not signed as a trustee.
Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, except if there is a timely piece that goes out, and quite honestly, there are indications where this board or the board president on behalf of the board may want to write an editorial. Does that mean we have to have a board meeting to officially vote or approve of?
Versus apprised of?
I think it
Right.
probably needs to be sent out to the board
Right.
to look at before it goes.
Like in Friday's
If we have
letter?
a concern, we should let the board president know.
That was.
So not approved, but apprised of. Okay. Good point. L.
And not viewed, not just told that they're sending something. So apprised would just say. you just know
Informed.
that they're gonna send it, so it should be viewed.
Viewed and informed, or informed and viewed.
Just viewed.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
What the?
So, one of that K and L are sort of repetitious, but whatever you want to do there.
think the rest of it looks good. Does anybody have anything else?
So on M, I have a question on number M.
Yeah.
Letter M, I'm sorry. A trustee who wishes to examine a new initiative that would impact district's resources, budget, staff, time, et cetera, should direct the idea to the superintendent for review. The superintendent will review the idea or direct it to staff for review. Wouldn't that be through the committee? That we could bring recommendations up to the committee and ask the committee to review? Would we need to have to go directly to the superintendent?
Which committee?
We said, so the reason behind that, I don't know why I can remember this stuff, Gerald, and I can't remember what I did yesterday. But the reason that we did that is because if it's going to be an initiative that would impact the district resources, the budget, the staff time, et cetera, that was something that we needed to have the superintendent review prior to. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, I don't know, I'm coming up with something crazy. I came up with some crazy thing that I want to do for the whole school district. And I take it, and I'm not understanding the implication from a staff time or an expense, a district expense. So I take it to a committee, I get all the rest of the board all excited about it, and I haven't truthfully had the courtesy to take it to the superintendent. And then when I take it to him, now I've got everybody excited on the board about it. However, now I'm going to be told about the impact that it would have on staff, the impact that it would have from, let's say even that there's a violation of something or other that I wasn't aware of, where it would violate a policy or a procedure that we already have in place. And so that was the reason behind it, is that before we initiate something that's going to have a district-wide impact, that needs to go to the superintendent first for a full discussion on what that impact is and if it's something that's truly going to be something that could be done. Are y'all remembering it the same way? Yes.
I just feel that just takes away from the committee then. I mean.
Oh, no, because once you have it, once you have the approval, once you have discussed it, and it could be that, say you want to do something, and then superintendent's like, okay, we need to find some common ground on it because we can't do it from this aspect because it's going to impact these things, or it's going to have too much staff time allocated to it. And then you can find a way where it could be possible, and then that goes to the committee. So it's just that initial step, and then the rest of it then goes to then that's the next step is then
Is in the committee.
is then that it goes to the committee.
Okay. Well, I have a hard time with that one, but we can.
Oh, Mr. Blunt, I'm confused.
I guess the other thing to think about,
I don't think it needs to go.
because you're right, I think let's sort of explain part of it is, resources, it all can be facilities, it could be other things too. They didn't necessarily involve the budget or staff, there could be other things impact. But I thought the other major reason for this one is, this one's sort of, it's an interesting one. Because actually, if we're doing that, it's no longer governance, that's what we rely on the superintendent for, is to do initiatives and other things. And we sort of, when you start doing these type of things like that, now we may be getting outside of governance, to be honest, because we shouldn't be doing new initiatives.
But that's what the committee's for.
What
right?
committee?
The committee, whatever committee we decide.
That's-
A committee that, let's say, goes through, an issue that goes through a committee or for an initiative,
But committees would fall under the superintendent again.
I'm sorry?
To me, committees would fall under a superintendent. When you get to committees, you're implementing or ideals or
Well,
other
and
things
they're
like
always recommending, right?
potentially, depending on what you're
Staff
talking
is
about.
always recommending
Right.
to committees
To the superintendent.
To the superintendent or to us?
It shouldn't be everything for us is to the superintendent is what I'm saying. That's our governance.
So a staff member's not going to bring something to us that
They bring
hasn't
it to
that hasn't gone through the superintendent
Right.
to
And then the
start with.
superintendent comes to us and then presents it to us, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
fine, okay, I got that. But let's say, so we talk about an initiative, and let's say, let's pick whatever
A
subject.
lacrosse team.
You know.
No.
Yeah, lacrosse team, right?
Yeah, Russ.
sports, and they come to us and they say, hey, we'd like to do that. I mean, wouldn't the committee offer that as a recommendation, or couldn't any board member bring that up to the committee, to whatever committee, right? I don't know if it would be, academics, or, I mean, aren't we not allowed to make recommendations that could be considered? Because even though we're using the proper protocol, we're not governing. We're not dictating, we're asking, can it be explored?
If you ask that, that's what I think, that's the
But,
superintendent.
yeah, and that,
No matter
Is that
what.
would
If
that
we
be the
say
same?
explore, when you get to action verbs,
Would that
yeah,
be the
because
same?
it says the superintendent will receive the idea or direct it to staff for review.
Okay, so then that's, okay.
Right.
Okay, I guess maybe I'm just tired then, I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
I'm tired, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the way that I look at it is, if we had the faith to hire the superintendent, and we need to have his input on those things that we talk about.
He's the administrator and runs the district.
And that is what it's saying, though, Gerald, with what you're talking about, is because it will review the idea or direct it to staff for review. So it meets that,
And then it comes back to us.
and then it would come to a committee.
Maybe I'm just tired,
Yeah. Okay, anything on the last page, page 7? My only question was under board travel. I guess if there's other opportunities to go to different conferences, they are brought up on an individual basis before the board for approval, right? And that's kind of covered under there, I guess. Even though we've specified TASB and NSBA, our practice has been, though, to put it on the agenda for the board to vote, okay? Creation of a board activity calendar, and then board officers and terms. And we have annually in there, so that's a good thing. We good to go?
Yep. I move approval.
All right. Is there a second?
I move approval as amended.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing no nays, the ayes will move this forward. And let me go back to, we are now getting ready for future options for time for students with the board,
So
or with students.
one of the things that we did not get to at our meeting in July was this topic. And so have heard through the years a desire to go back to some kind of time for the board with our students. And as this has come up over the years, one of the things that I've suggested to whoever brought it up is that one, that's a good idea, but two, let's do it in a way that's got some structure to it. So whether that's topical, where the board or some part of the board would agree that they wanted to hear about a topic, and we can invite some kids who were knowledgeable about that topic. Just a way to provide structure to it. I did not feel like what we had in the past was terribly productive, and I think that that's the reason we made a decision to stop. But there are other ways, I think, to organize it that could be very productive.
Ms. Reed. Ms. Reed.
Well, I'm glad that you're looking at it, because I do think it's one of the things in our operating procedures, and I think also even in the code of ethics, that we will talk with students and we will talk with parents and staff and so forth. While we're looking at this, I'd also like us to look again at the possibility of meeting with the principals. I mean, I used to know who the principals were, but I don't anymore. I know it's because there's a whole big bunch of them now, but there has to be some way that we can work that out, because I do think that we need to be a little more knowledgeable And definitely meeting with students, I think, is absolutely necessary. But doing it on a topic, I think that's great. So
With
I would-
students that have some sort of expertise or
Well,
a dog in the
that would
hunt.
be left up to the schools, and we're talking about high school students, we're not talking about elementary students. If you want to meet with elementary students, you ought to sign up for a visit to go to school.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, I would, my thoughts would be to have, to identify a group of students, however we decide to do that, X number of students per campus. And I know that there was a session, I know a couple of us went to, there was a school district that identified a specific group of students, and they used these students as ambassadors. Not only did they have conversations with the board, but they went through a leadership program with staff, but with board members as well, short, sweet, and then these students became ambassadors of that school and ambassadors of the district. But they were also called upon, the board called upon them for discussion of various things. So that would be something that I'd like us to think about.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chembley?
So I kind of look at it as two separate things for right now, because I would really like to have us meet with administrators, or with principals, and with students in the spring. I think that the format that we had before could get where it wasn't productive, where we were asking staff to bring us, and I know that it made not our current superintendent, but then superintendent, a little concerned if someone, a principal came up and gave us something new that the superintendent wasn't aware of. But what I would like is to have our conversations with our principals be about, something that, a best practice that they're doing, or, some new program that they have at their school that we don't know about and wouldn't have heard about. And, and it doesn't have to be long, and I know it's taking one more night out for them, but it's taking one more night out for us as well. But we have so many new faces, and my memory isn't what it used to be. So I'd like to have us do that from an administrative piece. But from a student piece, I liked the format that we did at the very end, the last time that we met with students, was we met at NAC, and we had tables set up, and each trustee was a facilitator on a table with staff, if I'm not mistaken. And we had questions ahead of time that we wanted to talk about. And then we facilitated with the students at that table in relation to those questions. And what I can't remember, Ray, I'm getting mixed up, is if we had someone act as a speaker and kind of do a short synopsis of what was discussed at that table on those issues. I can't remember if we did that or not.
We did.
We did. I liked that format. It controlled the issue, because I think what wasn't productive was when we had students come and, all we did was, discuss shorts or cell phones. When I think that there's other issues, how do they feel about security? What from a student's perspective, what would they want to see a campus look like to keep them secure? From a student's perspective, what are the great things we're doing in curriculum, and what are the things that they feel as a student they're not getting, or they think they should get? I mean, those are just, and anyway, that would be what I would like to see us go back to. Not, and I would really like for the schools to look at a cross-section, because I know we went through phases where we only got the cream of the crop, but it was really more beneficial when we had kids from kind of all levels on the campuses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chembley. Ms. Freeman?
Is there somebody else that wants to speak?
I'm
before I go
not seeing
second?
another light. We need new light bulbs.
No order.
Does that
Get
look like?
flags out.
All right, Mr. Blunt, and then Ms. Freeman. Thank you for offering that. I guess his smile, though, lights up when he's ready to talk. That's what it is.
There you go. So here's my bad idea, but if it was me, my preference is to be out there with them per se. Dr. Woods is not gonna be like this. But, for example, riding a bus or doing something that the kids are doing is really my preference as opposed to having dialogues and talking and that type of thing. If it's a totally new program or chess competition or something like that, we could actively engage in or challenge them to a basketball game or something. But to me, it's really being out there per se.
That'd be fun.
Is my preference.
Like that. I just wanted to add, kind of piggybacking on Ms. Chumley's, the way that the summit, the Servant Leadership Summit was crafted this time, it was, and they chose, even though there were student athletes, Stan said that they chose athletes that needed to show leadership. They weren't the top dogs, they weren't the team leaders voted on by the kids or picked by the coach, but they were chosen for different reasons to either grow or kind of take the lead. And the questions were very tight, but it was totally, the students were immersed in really having great dialogue that led to some sort of ideas for solutions and problem solving. They were written at a high level. They were wonderful. And so, so much so that, you know, you leave with, you want to see these ideas come to fruition because they were very well done. But to Bobby's point, I always learn so much in the middle of everything, like at solar cars or whatever. And, you know, I think that's just kind of a personal preference that, you know, you're with kids in their own environment versus tables. But either one, I saw some really good things happen and good feedback. It's just that coming back from the summit, the rest of you didn't get to participate. So moving forward as a board is difficult and challenging unless something comes from Coach Lang or Dr. Woods. So anyway, and same, I think, if I go to one thing and you don't, I think the effort in the past has been for something we all participate in and we all talk about those concerns. So, and then Ms. Freeman, were you?
Yeah, just a couple things. I know we've talked about staff dialogue. Let's be careful, it's not on the agenda, so we could bring that back or have that in discussion perhaps at another time regarding talking to staff. And with students, I've heard a couple different things. Bobby, I like your idea. It doesn't involve the entire board, though, at a time, and I think that's what we're looking at. And we could still do those kinds of things, I think, individually. We could talk about what that might look like at a later time. I guess I would propose that we do something like we did before, something like Melissa had suggested, but not wait till the end of the school year. Perhaps do something mid-year and maybe something again toward the end of the year. And then maybe at a board workshop, maybe mid-year, we might want to talk about some other thoughts.
Okay.
Because we could spend all night talking about it.
I think so. We do have our solar car already built though, so if we have a date, we can all show up at.
Well, I think you've got consensus
I
that
do.
we want to bring back the students. And then, Brian, what's your recommendation on next steps?
I think we'll come up with a way to execute the consensus. I don't see any next steps other than just do it.
Okay.
I would be fine if we just got one off the ground for this year and then moved into, if there was a beginning of the year and end of the year or something, mid-year.
And I think middle school would be interesting to talk to too. I mean,
You know what? And those fourth and fifth graders, those 5-year-olds can tell you
just
good stuff.
Maybe stay with one age group at a time. Okay, Dr. Wood.
Okay.
High school first and then go from there.
Okay. All right. Moving right along. Future agenda items. Dr. Woods.
In your blue folder, you've got a couple of invitations to events that are upcoming in the next week or so, and then obviously the list of items we're carrying for future meetings. Next regular meeting is October 22nd.
Okay,
We voted to approve.
all right, it is now
Before
10.
we go?
Okay,
Before we go
sorry,
forward?
sorry.
No, I just, regarding future agenda items.
Sure.
I don't know why, and I guess I was thinking about the agenda item, or somewhere I read, in some committee, we were going to talk about community-based accountability system, and where we are with that, just a report, maybe in academics. Wasn't it on an agenda somewhere?
I don't recall it being on an agenda. We are doing some investigation of that work, and so we can report out in academics for sure.
Okay, just where we're going.
So
and the
community-based
plan.
accountability, okay? Anything else?
Okay, explain what that is. I'm sorry.
So the notion of community-based accountability is that instead of purely relying on the state's accountability system, the community, led by the board, would come up with
Okay,
a set of things it wants to measure in,
Yeah.
in its schools and in its kids that would ideally go well beyond the STAR test.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Brian, that just wasn't registering, but I know what you're talking about. I've got two things on future agenda items that can go to a committee, though I think I've just
All right,
forgot
Ms.
what one of them was. The one, if we could, and probably, I don't know which committee, Brian, it would go to, but I'd like to have us at least start the discussion about an ambassador program. HEB has one, that's the program, that's the session I went to see. Really impressed with what they do, and I can see a real benefit of having kids. I'm just not quite sure the logistics of it because our district is so big. But I really did see a benefit of trying to see if that's possible.
And there are kids and adults. There's an adult version of the ambassadors with HEB ISD.
Well, Carol, I think that I kind of think we have that in that we have the Bond Advisory Committee, we have the Citizens Bond Committee, we have some of the other committees, I think we do a good job of engaging community and parents. But I really like that ambassador program, if we could put that on an agenda.
Sure.
And then the other thing is, Brian, I would really like to have an update on, I know over the last 3 years that you've been tracking where children are leaving. And you have a program in place in relation to a staff member being accountable for reaching out to them. And I'd like to know the stats on where that is and where we are on that, and if you're seeing improvement or just, I think our total numbers that have left us are something to at least make sure that we keep an eye on and aware of. But I would like to know kind of how that program is succeeding and what you're seeing from that contact to those families.
Okay.
That was it. Thanks.
Anything else under future? Anything else under future agenda items? Okay. All right. So at 10:09, we will convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551.072 and 551.074. And the discussion will be on sites and various appointments. Thank you. Okay, 10:35, and we'll convene an open meeting. Sites, appointment of Director of Acquisitions, appointment of Vice Principal, appointment of Assistant Principal at Jordan Middle School. Do I hear any? I don't. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Now we're moving forward. Thank you, Melissa. No, good mentoring, good mentoring. We need, yeah, I know you're just, we're gonna sing it next time. I'll take the lure. Now, appointment of Director of Acquisitions.
I
sorry.
would move approval of the administrative appointments as discussed in
Okay.
executive
Is there a
session.
second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing none. Ayes have it. Let's go at 10:36. Thank you.
Amen.
Thanks